because he needs your leadership. And I've watched you around here. You aren't intimidated by anybody. You speak from the heart and from the brain together. And that kind of leadership this president needs now. And so bless you for serving the city of Los Angeles, and our prayers are with you as you serve the whole nation and the world going forward. Thank you.
I am fortunate enough to chair the committee that the Housing Department reports to, and that's where Mercedes and I cultivated not a good relationship, a great relationship. And I too have to echo what was said by Mr. Garcetti and Ms. Perry. A good leader, a great leader, assembles a team that can get things done. And the staff at this department has, I think, really blossomed under your tenure. And yes, we will miss you. But in a twisted way, I don't view it as a loss. I know that you will be there in Washington as an advocate for us, that you will make sure that Los Angeles gets its fair share. And the last thing that I want to say is I mentioned to Mercedes to get a heavy coat and some boots. But anyone that knows Mercedes knows that she always dresses to the nines anyway. So to be back in an environment where you have real seasons, I think you're going to not only have to buy a place where you live, you're going to have to get a place to store all of your clothes. And I just can't wait to see your spring wardrobe.
You and me both.
So that's the positive thing for you. Just get a couple of good coats and the rest will be gravy. I am saying temporarily so long to a dear friend, a person who took the time to educate me on the committee, and say that it has just been a pleasure dealing with you. And what I will miss most is just you and your counsel and your wisdom, and you made sure that I didn't do anything stupid. So anyway, I appreciate that.
I want you to know that I feel confident that I leave Los Angeles and the Housing Department in the most professional, intelligent, hard-working, integrity-filled group of individuals that I have ever had the privilege to work with. They work so unbelievably hard. They show such courage. They work long hours. I know that things are tough, and the public often thinks that public sector employees have it easy. You don't know. It takes 50% more of a burden to get through the rules and do it right. If it were easy, everybody would do it. And these folks, such enormous dedication and integrity. They come from all over. Many left other cities. They came from the private sector. We're in the time in the world of the public sector worker where they don't necessarily stay 30 years. These are folks who have come in mid-career and have the opportunity to come in and out. I think that is the future if we're going to succeed. As technology and understanding of finances changes, we're going to have to find a way to welcome people to come in and out from the private and public sector. They took the risk with me, some having never worked in the public sector before, and they have knocked it out of the park. I am so grateful to them. I love them. Thank you. I also want to thank your staffs. It has to work both ways. And you all have some of the brightest, hard-working, intelligent staffs in this country. I would include in that the CLA and the CAO. We have gone from kind of knowing one another to having the kind of natural tension that exists when one is supposed to regulate the other and audit the other, to what I would say is a successful relationship of professionals who understand altogether what the goal actually is.
And of course, we would like to add our congratulations and thanks as well to Mercedes Marquez. Also on Wednesday, items 1 through 4 were the reappointments of Margarita Gar and Beatrice Stotzer and the appointment of Tanua Thrash to the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners and the appointment of Dr. Lula Bailey Bolton to the Community Redevelopment Agency Board of Commissioners. Chair of the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee, District 10 Councilmember Herb Wesson, urges his colleagues to confirm all 4 of the nominees.
The committee unanimously recommended that we as a council reappoint to and appoint to. So I just think we should open it up for questioning. Hopefully there is none, and then we can move this item.
Approaching the noon hour, District 1 Councilmember Ed Reyes, who also serves on the Community and Economic Development Committee, acknowledges the all-female Housing Authority Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your patience. Obviously, those that are reappointed already know what patience means, all the meetings you have, but I do want to thank that extensive discussion during committee. I'm not going to repeat every question. It's been a long day. I just want to thank you for your hard work. I know in B. Stotzer, I won't say how long ago we met, but it's been some years, but it begins with a child care center on a blighted block that mushrooms into an amazing network of services and properties and stewardship, and to see the expertise that we have learned from during committee. This city is very blessed to have such strong people, such strong commitment, and to be able to claim it's all-female, at least from the Housing Authority, all-female talented board that brought it out. It's like the phoenix. You brought it out from the ashes. It's being reborn, and it's about to fly and take off again. And I appreciate all your hard work. And Doctor, I look forward to working with you. I know that with your stewardship, your CDC has reached many high levels, and we look forward to working with you and taking this organization to just equal in height. So thank you so much, and appreciate your patience.
Standing to give her shout-outs, District 15 Councilmember Janice Hahn speaks to the strengths of each of the nominees.
Well, I just wanted to rise and give my great support to all 4 of you wonderful, beautiful, strong women who bring, really, each of you, such an interesting, diverse background, which gives you a good perspective, I believe, for the commissions that you're being appointed to. And I just wanted to give a shout-out to Ms. Gar for being such a tireless advocate for Jordan Downs and for the Watts Gang Task Force. You come regularly to our meeting, and I think that's really important to have a commissioner come to this grassroots organization on a regular basis, because that just hasn't been the tradition for commissioners to actually spend time in the community that they serve on this particular commission. So I really want to thank you for that. I think it sends a great message to the Watts community, and you really are a terrific role model, I think, in so many ways. So we applaud your reappointment, and just want to continue to urge you to be a strong, loud voice, particularly for the Jordan Downs redevelopment. That is a jewel, that is a hopeful part of what I think the Watts community is hoping for. So, Ms. Thrash, I really want to thank you for agreeing to serve on the commission, and I know one of the things we want to make sure that happens is the Watts Star Theater, and I know you've taken a big interest in that, and we have been talking about building a first-rate theater in the community of Watts for as long as I can remember, and it's sad to me that that has not happened yet. And we've got the land, we've got the place, we've got the dream. And this, as you know, is not going to be just a theater, although the community deserves just a theater. But it's going to be a theater that has a component that will provide for job training and skill development and teach young people that there is another side to movie theaters, and that's on the other side of the camera. And there's a lot of good careers in that. And this is something that I want to see before I die, or at least before I get out of office. I only have 4 more years left with term limits, so let's really work hard to make that theater a reality for the wonderful residents of Watts. And I also want to thank Beatrice for your vision, your compassion, your advocacy for women. New Economics for Women is such a great organization, and I partner with them on some housing projects in my district, and I really want to thank you for that background that you have with that organization, and urge you to continue to bring that forward in every deal that we can possibly think of making in the city when it comes to good, affordable, decent housing, particularly when it comes to single women who have a really rough time really trying to find decent housing for themselves and their families. And we know that women particularly, it's hard to get on with your life. It's hard to make a living when you know that you don't have that one foundation, the American dream, which is a decent place to live, secured. So really want to thank you for that and continue to advocate for that. Am I over?
You are,
Okay,
unfortunately.
one more. I just want to give a shout out to the last one, being obviously the president of Los Angeles EDC, longtime member of Los Angeles, and we love that. We love that church, and again, that brings such a great perspective to this table. So thank you very much for your willingness to step up and serve on this commission. Thank you. I'm done.
Citing project examples located in the San Fernando Valley, District 3 Council Member Dennis Zine speaks to the challenges that the nominees will face.
Congratulations. 1 to CRA, 3 to housing. Great need in the city of Los Angeles. I'm sure you've heard that prior to today. I know one of you because you're doing a great project in my community. You've done wonderful with that. But you've got great challenges, and the unique part is the 3 going to housing. You're now going to be able to bring in some fresh views and some fresh values and some enthusiasm and move it forward. I know Mr. Wesson is very committed to that. And the CRA, we have a lot of CRA projects. I have 2 in my district. So Canoga Park, All-American City, and Reseda. So to all of you, congratulations. I was at a work source center this morning in Canoga Park. They put together a program for the community, and they had an overflow group of people looking for work, looking for homes. Wonderful, honorable, tax-paying people that are really desperate trying to find residence and trying to find a job. So the components that you're going to be involved with obviously is finding the housing, establishing that, and then the CRA refurbishing areas. So together, it's all part of that city family to make it a quality place for all. Congratulations to all of you. And I'll say it because Janice Hahn didn't say it, because I thought she would say it, that girls rule in this particular situation. There's no doubt that girls rule. Am I right or wrong, Jan? Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well, it is absolutely an impressive group. So with that, we will formalize this process with a vote. And congratulations all on your appointments and reappointments. With that, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
A round of applause for our 4 women commissioners. Congratulations.
During the public comment portion of the meeting on Tuesday, newly elected City Attorney Carmen Trutanich was at the podium to address the cost to the city for the Michael Jackson Memorial Service.
Good morning to the City, Madam President, and to the entire City Council. I thought I might want to come down here this morning to express a little bit of my concern regarding the expenditures of money that are taking place as we speak. My latest briefing is that there's 2,500 people outside the Staples Center, and given that, it's about $10,000 a person that we're expending in regards to public funds in that. I know that you guys can't take this up today, I want you to know that I'll be back in 3 days to talk to you, perhaps in private session, in closed session, regarding some of the expenditures and some of our plans on recouping some of that money for the taxpayers of the City of Los Angeles. Rest assured that our office is investigating, one, how this whole phenomena occurred from the get-go to where we are today. Also, the amount of money that's being expended, and thoroughly looking at how we are going to recoup that money for the citizens. And lastly, closing any gaps for anything in the future so that we won't be caught in this lurch again and asking these same type of questions. So with that said, I just wanted to let you know that I brought Peter Chevarria, who is working on a motion that you have before you now, and that we will be supplementing that with some new legislation also. So I look forward to seeing you in 3 days when we can take this thing up lawfully.
Item 49 on Tuesday was a Transportation Committee report recommending the establishment of a bicycle safety program. Explaining why the recommendation has come forward, District 1 Councilmember Ed Reyes wants to make clear that this is not an effort to create a bicycle licensing program.
Our intent is, given the testimony we've heard, and given the reaction that many have essentially manifested their disagreement, their disillusionment, and how some bicyclists are being treated, it became very clear that Los Angeles Police Department, along with the Department of Transportation, needs to figure out a way to coordinate how that law is being administered and how bicyclists are being treated. We know we have a long way to go in a city that is dependent on the automobile. Our culture evolves around the automobile. But to change that culture, we need to start showing some initiative in how we treat bicyclists and raising a priority as a viable mode of transportation. Quite frankly, in my district, many folks ride bikes out of necessity, but also because of recreation. So it is our intent to develop the type of coordination that raises the level of understanding of what it means to be a bicyclist, improve the safety conditions of the bicyclists, and introduce through DOT, and we've done that through several motions, several of us council members, and how we look at our community plans, redesignate our streets, consider what's called bicycle boulevards, and other measures that allow us to enhance the safety of bicyclists. So I just wanted to make sure that that was expressed and support Councilmember Rosenthal's request to have a date certain return on some of our reports.
Expressing his expectations and talking about the culture of cars in Los Angeles, District 11 Councilmember Bill Rosendahl requests a report back on the bicycle safety program.
I move that the Transportation Committee report relative to CF number 091034 be amended to instruct the LAPD and the LADOT to report back to the Transportation Committee in 90 days on efforts to create an LAPD bicycle safety training program. LAPD and LADOT should include 2 members of both the LA Bicycle Advisory Committee and the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition in discussions relevant to the development of the safety program. That's the amendment I'd like to make to that motion. Because indeed, the culture of the car has to change, and we have to appreciate that bicycles are a way of transportation besides just sport, and it is obviously good for the environment and good for the individual involved. Over the next 90 days, we are having open forums and discussions and continue the dialogue with the bicyclists and involve them heavily in this process as we go forward. And I look for an aye vote on this motion. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. There are no further speakers in the queue, so Mr. Clerk, if you would please open the roll on that item, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
LA City View is the government access cable channel for the City of Los Angeles, featuring live coverage of City Council meetings and programming about City Department services and events. You can watch City Council meetings live or view past meetings by going to the city's website at lacity.org and follow the instructions for video on demand. And we invite you to address the Los Angeles City Council on any item on the council agenda, as well as during public comment. You may come downtown to City Hall or go to the Van Nuys City Hall and participate via video teleconferencing. And now those of you living in the Harbor area can go to the San Pedro City Hall, located at 638 South Beacon Street, room 700 in San Pedro, and also participate in council meetings via video teleconferencing. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m., and on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending July 10th, 2009. On behalf of Tony Agani and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Moving is so much of who we are. It's easy to take it for granted. Multiple sclerosis stops people from moving. We exist to make sure it doesn't. The National Multiple Sclerosis Society is a collective of passionate individuals united by a common goal to address the challenges of each person whose life is affected by MS. We believe that moving is not just something you can or can't do, but rather is who you are. That if you are alive, you move along with, because of, and in spite of the great big turning world. Join the movement, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, at nationalmssociety.org.
I got you something very special for our first anniversary. Now close your eyes. Surprise! It's an emergency preparedness kit. Isn't it great? It's got food, water, first aid kit, and this neat emergency tool for shutting off utilities. Honey, we are going to be prepared for any emergency. Honey? Sweetie, I have one more surprise. This really cool cranking flashlight.
Get the message? Be prepared.
G'day, Troy McCubbin from North Hollywood. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 14th, 2009. We are here in the John Farrow Council Chambers in room 340 of City Hall. We meet here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I want to welcome our guests here in the Council Chambers, as well as those who are in our Van Nuys Council Chambers and in San Pedro. We are broadcast live on Channel 35 each meeting throughout the city's cable system and rebroadcast each evening. We're also available online at lacity.org, and click on the links on the left and you can catch live streaming webcasts of our council meetings and archived footage of our past council meetings, as well as our agendas, links to our departments, and other important services to improve the quality of your life here in Los Angeles. I'm Council President Eric Garcetti, joined by Council Members Cardenas, Huizar, Parks, Perry, Rosendahl, Smith, and Wesson, who are here pursuant to council rules on time. We are still awaiting a quorum, which is 2/3 or 10 members of our 15-member body, and so we are awaiting Mr. Alarcon, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Koretz, Mr. Labange, and Mr. Reyes. Mr. Zine is excused today on city business. As I mentioned, our agendas are available online, but they're also available here in the back and in our City Council chambers in San Pedro and Van Nuys. If you'd like to be heard on any of the items, all items receive a public hearing either in committee or here in council. In order to reopen a hearing, a council member needs to do that if it's already had a hearing in committee. Otherwise, a card from the public triggers an automatic public hearing. And we also have general public comment in our meetings for items not on the agenda, but nevertheless under our jurisdiction. And just fill out a speaker card, hand it to one of the sergeants at arms or city staff at the remote locations, and we'll be sure to put your card in the mix. I want to again thank those council members who are here. Council members Cardenas, Huizar, Parks, Perry, Rosendahl, Smith, and Wesson. The following council members are late. Council members Alarcon, Hahn, Koretz, Labange, and Reyes. If you'll please make your way down so we can begin as soon as possible. If you don't get a quorum by 10:15, we will adjourn for lack of quorum. So please make your way down as soon as possible. Thank you again, everybody, for your patience while we wait those council members. I'd like to recognize Mr. Parks for an introduction. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask one of our former city employees during the Bradley administration, now senior United States District Judge, Terry Hatter, is here. I'd like him to stand, and he's brought a number of students, international students here that are clerking in this in the office, and they wanted to come and see how city government works. And so thank you very much for being here.
This is our final quorum call. Council members Alarcon, Hahn, Labange, and Reyes. If we don't have a council member in the next few minutes, we will adjourn for lack of a quorum. We can ask the sergeants at arms to please inquire as to council members Alarcon, Hahn, and Labange's whereabouts. I have been informed Mr. Reyes is not well today, so he will not be with us. So, council member Alarcon, Hahn, and Labange, we're awaiting your presence for quorum. Thank you. Informed that Mr. Alarcon and Ms. Hahn are in the committee. I've asked for Ms. Hahn to be sent down right away so we can begin our meeting. Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Alarcon, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Hahn, Weezer, Koretz, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson-Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right. Mr. Wesson moves. Mr. Smith seconds. Without objection, those minutes will be approved. Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Koretz moves and Mr. Parks seconds. Without objection, those two will be approved as well. Next order of business.
Mr. President, do you wish to go through the agenda? Mr. President, this actually is Tuesday. There is a flag salute.
Absolutely. If I can ask everybody to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. And Ms. Perry, if you'd be kind enough to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Please put your right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we can run through the agenda, please.
Item 1 is the Downtown Industrial Property and Business Improvement District notice for public hearing. Council should close the public hearing, and the ballot tabulation will be at tomorrow's meeting.
Okay. Then we will close the hearing, and we'll have the... we don't have any cards on that, do we?
No cards have been submitted.
Okay. So we'll close the public hearing on that, and we will hear the ballot tabulation tomorrow. Next items, please.
Items 2 through 4 are street lighting districts notice for public hearing. Council should continue the hearings and present the ordinances on August 4th.
Okay, without objection, we'll continue those till the 4th of August. Next item.
Item 5 is a building and safety lien in Council District 1 notice for public hearing, and there is a card on that.
Okay, we'll call that special for a card from the public on number 5. Next items, please.
Items 6 through 72 are items for which public hearings have been held. Item 6 is a commission appointment. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Yes, please. Let's hold the commission appointment on the desk.
And on item 26, the matter was waived by committees. A motion is required.
Okay. Is there a motion on item number 26? I'll move the LAHD report then. There's no motion? Yeah. On this one, or it's other specials?
26.
You want to call it special?
Yes.
Okay.
And, Mr. President, also on items 45 and 51, those matters may be received and filed inasmuch as the applicants have withdrawn their applications.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move to receive and file those. Yes, Mr. Cardenas?
30 special.
30 special from Mr. Cardenas. Other specials, colleagues? If not, we will go ahead then and take up the balance. This is items 6 through 72, colleagues. Going once, going twice. No more specials. Let's take up the balance then, please. Open the roll. Close the roll. and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Items 73 through 83 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration. Item 73 is also a commission appointment. Do you wish to hold that?
Yes, please. Let's hold 73.
And on item 83, there is a request to continue that matter 1 week to July 21st.
Okay. Is there any objection to continuing till the 21st? If not, so ordered. Mr. Smith?
Yes, 77 and 78.
Okay. 77 to 78 for Mr. Smith. Do we have cards for any of the other ones?
Yes, Mr. President, there are cards on 74 and 80.
Okay. Let's go ahead then, and on the rest, to open and close the public hearings. And please prepare the roll on the balance and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, those are approved. 82 will send forthwith without objection. Any other forthwiths, colleagues? If not, that'll take us to our general public comment now. This is for items that are not on today's agenda, but nevertheless under the jurisdiction of the City Council. We have 2 minutes per speaker, and we have a clock to help you guide your minutes up there. Also, there is a code of conduct that we ask that you abide by, and please address the council as a whole. Our first speaker is Zuma Dog. After that, we will hear from Kathleen Padden in Van Nuys. Good morning, Mr. Dog.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. Zuma Dog, my blog's on fire, LADailyblog.com, going to the top of the country, everything I post about the CD2 election. By the way, I'd like to welcome my camera crew. If City Council can wave and smile, my reality camera crew's here today because there's such a major announcement that Zuma Dog has filed his paperwork to become a candidate in CD2.
Thank you. If we could just ask the cameraman to please say the word to come to the side per our policy.
Excuse me?
Go ahead. Thank you.
I told him I was trying. Anyway, CD2, to start again, take 2, Zuma Dog. Yes, everybody, please smile. My reality camera crew's here because it's such a major announcement. You might have read in LA Times, Zuma Dog filed to replace Wendy Gruhl. It's time to take back the city at a grassroots level, and I don't know why someone would want to vote for Paul Krikorian. He's like, hey, I'm Paul Krikorian. I want to represent you.
Mr. President.
Okay, together. Anyway, the reality crew can see already that when you come here for First Amendment to try to say what you want, they're here to tell you can't stand, you can't talk, you can't say this, you can't say that, you get Hey, I'm here to tell you, it's we the people. It's called we the people, not you people. You people are not the people. I want you to be we the people. Get it straight, all right? Because Bruce Springsteen said, Badlands, you gotta live them every day. Let the broken heart stand, there's the price you gotta pay. Keep pushing us understood, and City Council starts treating us good. Man, you guys gonna be pissed off lately. Because let me tell you something. In case you didn't know, Hollywood has left the city. It's such a, okay, on American Top 40, I am Casey Kasem. The number one issue the city has to confront is why there are 0 movies filming in Hollywood. Because you outpriced them, you're too difficult to deal with, and now they're going and renting islands in Boston to rebuild a set. Get some leadership, City Council. You tank the city.
Our next speaker is Kathleen Padden in Van Nuys. After that will be Bruce Darien also. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Padden, and I'm the block captain of our neighborhood watch on LeMay Street in Van Nuys. I'm speaking for the residents of my block and for many other homeowners in Van Nuys. When I ask you for a vote no on the undemocratic and corrupt proposal to change the name of a portion of Van Nuys to Sherman
Excuse me, I'm
Oaks.
sorry, Ms. Padden. The general public comment is for items that are not on the agenda, so we'll put the number of that item, what was it, Mr. Clerk? 30? Number 30 on your card. But this is just the time for comments for items that are not on today's agenda, so I'll make sure that we come back on item 30 should we reopen the public hearing on that one, okay?
This is my opinion, then.
No, absolutely. It's just not for this part of the meeting. This is for general public comment, which is specifically under the State Brown Act for items that are not on the agenda. If people want to give general comments, not on part of the Brown Act. So we'll come back to item 30, which is, I think, the item that you wanted to speak on, the renaming of the neighborhood. Is that correct?
I think this is wrong what you're doing here.
I'm sorry, ma'am. We're not denying you the right to speak. We're just saying it's in the wrong part of the meeting. So I think that we're going to take your card right here and make it on item number 30, which is the item number. This is for a time for items that are not on the agenda, okay? So we'll come back to that. Bruce Darien is our next speaker in Van Nuys also, and then we have Ali Rasai.
City Council members, President Garcetti, I'd like to comment on the fees that have been spent for the Michael Jackson service. I had the opportunity to see the Jacksons in 1984 at Dodger Stadium, and I can say that Michael Jackson, without a doubt, is one of the greatest dancers and performers of our time. But that being said, as well as the rest of the Jacksons, and my condolences go out to their family. For the city of Los Angeles to be paying for a private funeral or for services thereof is wrong. And I generally believe that the city does not have the capacity to understand the gravity of where we sit as a city right now with its problems, because they continue. And so the money that's being expended could and must go for far more important things to the people of Los Angeles. Not to take away from the Jacksons or the greatness or the philanthropic things that Michael Jackson did for the world. Those cannot be contested or discounted. But to take $3.5–4 million and put it to a service for him or anybody else, and it sets a precedent, so where does it stop? This is wrong. And I've come down here today to express my feelings on that. The Oscars, watched in how many countries around the world. The fact that it generates business to Los Angeles is great. It belongs in Los Angeles. They built the Hollywood and Highlands to the Kodak Theater to house the Oscars. We should not be paying for the services to put that event on as well. Okay? Mr. Trutanich is right. Mr. Zine is right. As a body, I don't feel that any of you have the capacity to run this city in the way that it should be. And when I have the opportunity to come down here, I'll expand on further issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darien. Ali Rasai is our next speaker, and then Reverend Patrick Duff will follow. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Greetings in the name of the Most High God, Jah Rastafari Selassie, Kings of Kings and Lords of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. My name is Ali Rasai, and I say, brothers and sisters here today, God bless all of you who are service to the people, city workers, and also God bless Michael Jackson for his service to us all. My agenda here today is about attack on our temple, Liberty Bell Temple. There are few people who are not genuine that work or so-called represent city council. In their doing, they attack our temple. Reverend Patrick Duff will address it more than I will. But also, I will say this. Who do good, good will follow you forever. And this is my new home, LA, this beautiful city. And I'll be here. And I'll be here, and a lot of our brethren and a lot of our sisters will be here. And I ask in the corporation of this beautiful city to have Rasta to distribute medical marijuana to all who need it. It's a sacrament to our God. And also consult the Constitution of the United States. That's why we Rasta love LA and its voters and the politicians who serve us well. Please, stop any action or action against our Rasta temple. Any breach is a breach of our temple's door. I say have a beautiful day every day for all of us. God bless. Rastafari, I.
Thank you very much, sir. Reverend Patrick Duff is our next speaker, and then Dr. Clyde Williams will follow. Good morning.
So basically I'm here today to explain to you what happened to us at Liberty Bell Temple. We were forced out of our temple at 2823 Hyperion Avenue. We were forced out by the landlord, basically. The landlord gave us unlivable conditions. I have a fiance. We lived in the back house. She's pregnant. We were forced out by 6 armed guards by JYA security. Not a sheriff, but 6 armed guards. Now, the strange thing is, all these people are here from medical marijuana dispensaries, and you folks are going to vote on medical marijuana dispensaries to deny hardship hearings or whatever it is you're going to do. Well, I can tell you right now, you guys have a scam going on in your city. and you have city building inspectors who I have video evidence and photo evidence helping the landlord who forced out our temple from 2823 Hyperion Avenue and opened up, or helped open, the House of Kush Incorporated. Here's the card, 2823 Hyperion Avenue. Now, we've been there for about 2 years. If you remember, December 2nd, we came to you because we got raided by the DEA there. So I was really happy when the federal government said they were going to call off all their dogs, because we got raided and we lost a lot of our interest that day. Now, just to let you know, the city inspector has made it so 2823 Hyperion Avenue, House of Kush, is compliant with the city moratorium, folks. So whoever's getting denied your hardship hearings, there's a place that's not even open because I still hold the lease at 2823, and I had the police remove them. So I have a lawsuit right now that's against the landlord, and it's also going to be against the city, because the city is in collusion with my landlord to force out our temple from our address that we legally still have leased. I have video and photo evidence for any reporters that would like it. I have pictures of the inspector giving the paperwork over to the landlord, and then I have the paperwork that's been verified and given an okay by the city when I had the police remove them.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Clyde Williams is our next speaker. After that will be Miriam Fogler in Van Nuys. Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno. Bait and switch, that is, Caltrans, SCAGs, and MTA are conspiring to complicate the SR 710, I-710, gap closure, linkage, whatever you want to call it. They should provide us with what's going on. SCAGs has a separate study from that of the Caltrans. Caltrans is proposing to do the same study that SCAGs is doing. The one thing that the SCAGs report did show was that Los Angeles City will not get improved traffic on the I-5 or any of the other freeways within the city of LA. We get no benefit from a very large expenditure. I would highly recommend that the council consider to rescind any agreements that the city of Los Angeles has with Caltrans, SCAGs, or MTA regarding the SR or I-710 extension or gap closure. By the way, the mayor's office, the Board of Public Works, have not been represented on the steering committees and or the technical advisory committees for over a year. So the new term for the steering committee is the steered committee, because it will have to do whatever Caltrans says it wants to do in their new task order 5, which includes another study of the same corridors that SCAGs has recently studied and found that there's no improvement for any of the freeways in Los Angeles. The arterials still remain compacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Miriam Fogler is our next speaker in Van Nuys. After that is Donna Pearman. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to say that I'm very disappointed that you cut off this lady who's the first time coming here, and she didn't understand how to run the meeting. But you have been carving away at all our neighborhoods throughout the city so that people can make profits off their homes and save money on their insurance, and yet Berman, over in where I live, who won't even let us change the zip code over there to save money on insurance. And what if fiasco with the tearing up of Roscoe Boulevard? So they're tearing up the neighborhoods, and they don't care about the San Fernando Valley. You people should have done succession years ago. And allowing these people over here continue to be downtown, you guys here in the San Fernando Valley, you should be paying the price for this. Sherman Oaks people, you got the chutzpah to break off in Van Nuys. What a chutzpah. And secondly, this is a terrible thing you're doing to make us spend money on
Ms. Fogler, if you're talking about item 30, just like the previous woman, Ms. Padden, that would be for item number 30. This is for items that are not yet on the agenda, and we promise if that hearing is reopened, actually Ms. Padden is first there. We're happy to take your card, but this is for items. Hold on one second, Ms. Vogler. We'll hold your time, but we have to make sure for general public comment, and we've explained this a number of times, I know, but it's for items that are not on the agenda. So we're happy to hear any ideas you have on
You
items
are
on the
wrong.
agenda. Ms. Vogler?
You are wrong
Ms.
on
Vogler?
taxation without representation.
You
People
have
are
the
going
right
to rise
to
up.
speak. You could. Thank you, Ms. Vogler. We're going to go to Ms. Perriman then next. As our next speaker, Rick Nightingale will follow it. And this is just a final statement for anybody, and we appreciate people's patience out there. For anybody who wishes to speak on item 30, you fill out a card and put 30 in it, as almost everybody has done. For general public comment, whether it's item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or anything, this is not the time for those comments. This is for general public comment for items not on the agenda. And we hope that's clear. Ms. Perriman.
Yeah. Anyway, she talked in general, but anyway, I can't believe that the mayor said we should pay for the city services to Jackson Memorial. How can nobody else gets that privilege? I hope we get the money from the concessions on that also. Anyway, let me introduce myself. I'm Donna Perriman. My friend Miriam Fogler got me interested in politics long ago with the great John Floral was president, and now you're president. Anyway, I'm a federal employee, but Tuesday's my day off. Anyway, when the gang prevention program was lit on Wednesday, it shows our governor, our mayor, and city council is only out for themselves and the rich developers and the CRA. And of course, you're interested in your July raise, while the other city employees have to give up their raises. I don't see why any of you should be getting a raise. How can you ask for cutbacks? It's wrong to ask for furloughs at the state level. It's wrong to be done at the city level. Yet you continue to squander our money. We continue to come to you. We continue coming to you with our concerns that everything is rubber stamped. I believe you made up your mind even before we speak. They already decided not to hit the no button even before we speak. Also, why don't you do something about the city vehicles parking in the handicap spots, red zones, fire hydrants? If it's not done in a crime in progress, fine them. You continually misuse our money, yet you make yet you make the city employees give up their raise, while some of you, I said, still get your raise at a higher raise. Sacrifice is usually asked them to leave them. Sacrifice is only asked to lower the middle class employees. Yet you still award large amounts of money when it could have been solved earlier at a lower cost. It shows when you fail your jobs, you shouldn't be rewarded. Our city is in shambles. Our state is in shambles. Our county is in shambles. So somebody has to be accountable. Anyway, you can't keep on using all our money and spending all these people that you think are VIP, CRA, DWP. That's wrong.
Thank you, Ms. Perriman. And just for the record, there's no raise that anybody around this horseshoe got on July 1st. In fact, quite the opposite. Some people even took pay reductions. Rick Nightingale is our next speaker in Van Nuys, and after that is Candido Maris here back in council chambers. Good morning, Mr. Nightingale.
Good morning, Rick Nightingale. I'm agreeing with everybody that was here about the Michael Jackson thing, but first, I'd like to compliment Dennis Zion. He's the only one that speaks up against a lot of stuff what you're doing. He's the only one. Right off the bat, when it all happened, he did. So it wasn't that he waited a little while. And I couldn't believe Janice Hahn turned around and says, well, it brought money into the city. It didn't put no money in my pocket, it cost me money. So I'm sorry, I mean, nobody is entitled to that situation. And I believe what I read regarding the city attorney, that something should be drawn up that if they need any movie star or otherwise needs X protection and so forth, they pay for it. That's only right. I don't see no cops coming to my house even when something happens in my neighborhood. Who knows? But they turn around and get all this stuff? No, it's wrong. There's enough money in the Michael Jackson, they're going to be fighting over it anyway, so who knows what's going to happen with that kind of money. But I just don't understand it. And then when our mayor comes up and he's gone, and he turns around and comes up and says, oh, well, we're not going to do anything about it. So we're wasting our time talking about it, because if he's for it, then nothing's going to happen on it. And I think, I hate to say it, but Ms. Harry, you're in charge on both counts, on the council and the mayor. So, I mean, somebody has to go down for this. Somebody has to go down for it. So, and then let's go to Schwarzenegger. He is doing everything possible for us to get out of this debt. And all he's is asking is to turn around and when people can retire at 90% with 25 years and on your pensions, that's crazy.
He's trying to add 5 years onto it where he can't retire at 55. He's trying to turn around. I don't believe all these illegals and so forth that you're not entitled to all these benefits should get them. How about all of us and you say they pay taxes? Everything's done in cash. They pay state tax but nothing else because they aren't illegal and they don't have no security number. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Candido Maras here in Council Chambers. After that is Teresa Marquez.
Good morning, Mr. President, Council members. Candido Maras, living in the 12th District, honored to be represented by the great Councilman Greg Smith, but I'm also honored to live and be part of Van Nuys each and every day. They've been part of my life for over 35 years. I want to welcome the new Councilman, Mr. Koretz, and hope that he has success in this chamber and that he is independent and that you look at issues on each issue based on the facts, Mr. Koretz. Mr. President, I want to congratulate you on your reappointment. We have 4 years to change Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the greatest city in the greatest country in the world. But it won't happen and it won't continue unless we all work together. And if we don't listen to each other, we'll never get to that place to where we can really turn Los Angeles around. So congratulations, and I look forward to working with all of you in the coming years.
Thank you, Mr. Maras. Our next speaker is Teresa Marquez. After that will be Nadine Diaz.
Good morning. My name is Teresa Marquez. I'm a resident of Boyle Heights, CD 14, and I just attended a 4th of July event in our neighborhood. This was done at a park, at a community park, where we have ducks, geese, and so on. We have a lake. We have a very small park, but it's a beautiful park. And to my surprise, I took my grandchildren, I had my grandchildren, a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, right next to me to look at the fireworks. What I encountered was something terrible and devastating. When the fireworks started, and I didn't think of that, the birds started flying and running for their life. Some of the birds went on the streets, and we have a freeway right away, and it was dark, and you could see the birds flying out of the park. My God, I said, how could this happen? Didn't somebody take care of them or make sure they don't go on the street? Some of the ducks were found like 4 blocks down on a busy street. Now, I'm going to ask the City Council to please look at these events. And if the councilman in that district doesn't think about the wildlife or our community parks to save them, you need to look at it and say, and question that. This is the second event at that park. I didn't realize what had happened to the birds before. I had no knowledge. And I'm finding out that last year there were dead birds found the next day. Now, this is totally irresponsible. And I understand our councilman was contacted in regards to that. I sent them an email last week, and I asked them to please respond as to what's going to happen. I have not heard from him. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marquez. Nadine Diaz is our next speaker, and after that is Art Fieros.
Good morning, City Council members. My name is Nadine Diaz. I'm 46 years of age. I'm a 4th-generation constituent of Boyle Heights, 3rd-generation graduate of USC, and I am also a delegate for the Democratic Party for AD 46. I am a social worker in MSW, and I am here in grave concern regarding the 249 liquor licenses that encompass the entire community of Boyle Heights, which is a 10-mile radius. This is a health problem. This is a domestic violence problem. This is an addiction problem. This brings crime to our community. And I don't know any other community in this city that has an overabundance of liquor licenses. Unfortunately, our councilman, Weezer, seems to have a history of supporting more liquor licenses. This is is against the Caldera bill, which is a state bill, which supersedes city law. And number one, it supersedes because there is a high crime in Boyle Heights. Number two, there is an overconcentration of existing licenses already. Number three, the use would tend to create a law enforcement problem. Now, the LAPD supports the Boyle Heights Stakeholders Association and all of the other residents and constituents who are against any more liquor licenses in our community. We have children, family, elderly, women, men, and it is a working class community that deserves the same amenities as any other community. We pride ourselves on cleaning our community and representing it in a positive way. And we hope and we pray that the Councilman Weezer will join our efforts instead of opposing and supporting more liquor licenses.
Thank you very much, Ms. Diaz. Art Fierros is our next speaker. After that is Soledad Garcia. Very good morning.
Hi, my name's Arturo Fierros, and I'd like to express my condolences to the Michael Jackson family. But I heard that Los Angeles was broke. I heard that we're facing a crisis because we have no funding, and just like the people in San Fernando Valley, I live in Boyle Heights, and I feel that we shouldn't be funding the Michael Jackson arcade. You know, in reality, if you really think about it, if you fund anything, you should be funding, like they just killed 4 or 5 of our soldiers the other day. Why don't you guys fund their memorial? Why don't you guys help their families? You know, there's a lot of better ways to spend our money. You know? I mean, look, you guys are there to represent our city and take care of our city. And we're entrusting you with our tax money. So use it wisely, use wisdom. I mean, you know, it's sad that Michael Jackson passed away. He's part of all of us. I mean, we grew up watching him, and like I said, you know, it's not the family that has to, like, if I die, hey, my family has to take care of it. If you die, your family has to take care of it. So let them take care of their business, and you guys take care of our business, you know. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fierros. Soledad Garcia is our next speaker. And after Ms. Garcia, we have Vanna Merz, can't quite read the writing. Merskowitz, maybe?
Good morning, and thank you very much. And good morning to the council members, wherever you may be. I'm representing the DWP committee, which advocates for the ratepayers. There currently is no mechanism in place at DWP whereby on an on-call basis there can be advice given to the council, the community, or to the DWP commission on rates, on income, on budget, on policy, significant activities. And the other is, we would like to inform you that 42 neighborhood councils, 42 representatives of neighborhood councils voted unanimously to request that the ratepayers advocate be implemented. Several of the council members on this board at one time or another have also indicated that a type of ratepayer advocate, whether it's called an ombudsman or an attorney general, or whatever name was given. And I recall also that I heard the current mayor, when he was council member, also advocate for a ratepayers advocate. And so in that respect, may I ask the city council to seriously consider asking for an independent ratepayer advocate and funded by DWP. I thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Last speaker is Vanna Merskon something. I'm sorry if I didn't quite get the... You just tell us what your last name is? Thank you.
Is there any way, because he has a speech impediment, he can get a little longer time?
Sure, of course, sir. Absolutely.
Hello, my name is Vladimir Zakhanian.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Roscoe.
here on behalf of the Royal Temple of Zion. Okay, as far as I know, the city inspector is trying to close down the store. Without that store, me and 150 other patients are going to be left without any medication. And if that means we have to go to another dispensary, then that means we have to pay a lot more. Because at the Royal Temple, they have really great prices helping everyone out. I told the owner, Patrick Duff, that I need some help with money because my dad lost his job, my sister lost her job, and he agreed to help me out. And now the city inspector is trying to shut down the store. And, you know, the medication is very much needed. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your comments today. That will close our general public comments for today. We have our commissioners, and our first one is number 6, if we could please take that out of order, and like to recognize that went through Budget and Finance, is that correct?
That came out of Budget and Finance, and that's the appointment of Mr. Adlai Wortman to the Board of Fire Pension Commissioners.
Come to the table, and thank you for your patience, and would like to recognize the Chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. We had an extensive conversation with Mr. Workman at the Budget and Finance Committee, and I think if you go through his resume, you'll find, unlike many of our commissioners in the sense of his background, he has been fundamentally involved in a lot of community activity, particularly Chrysalis, which we've all benefited from in all of our districts. Also, he is obviously came from the Wright University, USC, that we want to acknowledge, and also that he has a willingness, as we've talked in Budget and Finance, to address many of these issues that have been in the news about the issue of the fiduciary responsibility of that pension fund and that commission. And so I would like him just to give a thumbnail of some of the comments he made at Budget and Finance as to what he views his role and responsibilities are as that commissioner.
Thanks, Councilmember. I have a strong belief that it is my civic duty. That it is my civic duty to take responsibility for things where I can and where I can be helpful to the city. And I think that to some extent I'm uniquely qualified here. I believe that the role of a commissioner for this pension system is first and foremost to protect the men and women in uniform who have put their time in and their money in and need to have their pensions protected. Weighing on the other side is making sure that the payments that the city would have to make are within the limits of what works for the city, and that it doesn't put too much of a heavy burden on the taxpayers of the city. And I think that weighing those two together is the challenge here, and one that I believe that I have the background and willingness to look at.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I think that if you have no questions, certainly would like to strongly recommend a unanimous vote in allowing this commissioner to go to work, and that we all know that there's a lot of work to be done. I think we had a gloomy June 30th, which for both pension systems dictates what their, as far as their actuarial and what their return on investment. And so he has a lot of work to do because both of, two of our three pension systems are right in that 25 to 30%, almost 30%, 20% reduction as it relates to their return on investment. So he has a great deal of work to do. We look forward to working with him, and we look forward to that pension system getting back on the straight and narrow and getting back into a positive, because that positively impacts the city general fund.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. Ms. Perry is next, then Ms. Hahn and Mr. Alarcon. Ms. Perry.
I'm very pleased about this appointment. Mr. Wertzman's background in finance, his background in running a major organization on behalf of people who are homeless, and now his stewardship at USC. I think we're very lucky to have someone so skilled, and if you know him, you know that he's highly independent and not afraid to express his opinions, which is exactly what we need on this commission. And so I'm pretty certain that I think we're all going to vote affirmatively, but I consider your presence to be a true asset.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn is our next speaker.
Thank you. I just wanted to rise and give my great support for this appointment. I think Mr. Wertzman brings really an interesting combination of work experiences to this commission. I, of course, worked with you in the Public Finance Department of Prudential Securities. That's where I first got to know Adlai and your great ability and intelligence when it comes to really not just crunching numbers, but the whole idea of public finance. And I think it's different than just a pure financial background. I think the work in public finance really kind of, I think, helps you see things in a way that ultimately benefits the public. And I always was a great admirer of you back in those days. It seems like a really long time ago that we worked together for Prudential Securities. But I think your career with Chrysalis and really working to provide opportunities for the homeless to really help change their lives and give them meaningful and important work and job opportunities, I think also speaks to how I think you could bring a great perspective to this commission. I will say that I appreciated your statement moments ago where you said it is a balance. I mean, clearly we have made public safety a priority for this city. We believe in our police officers and our firefighters, and we believe that they deserve, to be taken care of, really for their lives. But what we're seeing in this recent budget cycle is that the pensions do stand to possibly be a major burden and something that we're wondering whether or not that obligation will be too much for us in the future. So I really appreciated you looking at balancing both those two. So I think this is a great appointment for you, but we'll say it is a huge obligation for you to take on at this point to be on this commission. But I wish you well, and I think your background is perfect for what you're doing. It's great to see you here, Adlai.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Alarcon.
Adlai, I'm very pleased to support your nomination, but there are some critical issues facing the city of Los Angeles, and in some measure the pension systems have a responsibility to weigh in, and I think to an extent that they have not weighed in. So I would like to hear your comments. First of all, this economy is in the tank because of irresponsible corporate acting and financial actions emanating from financial bases in New York, etc. We simply cannot operate in that mode and expect that we're going to receive the proper return on our dollar. We have to change the way we act, and social responsibility is a key function, I believe, in improving our financial markets. And yet, we always run up against the wall of what I think is stupid thinking, where treasurers and people with so-called fiduciary responsibility think that their only owing is to the almighty dollar, when in fact fiduciary responsibility is far greater than that. So I would like to hear your comments about how you plan to modify the pension system so that it does give greater credence to local projects, investing in local projects, that it does give greater credence to working with corporations that are not ripping off the public, that it works with financial institutions such as banks that aren't ripping people off on foreclosures, instead of putting billions of dollars into these systems and encouraging them, enriching their power to demean the consumers. I would like to hear your comments on this, and I'm hopeful that your work with Chrysalis will far outweigh all the other fancy credentials that you have on the wall.
Well, thank you for calling. Anyway, I think that when I left Wall Street, and on Wall Street, my work was all focused on public finance, as Councilmember Hahn mentioned. It was all about how business interacted to the benefit of local and state government. I then went on to Chrysalis, where my primary responsibility was to engage the business community in the issues facing the city, to try to leverage businesses and developers as much as I could to the benefit of the people in the city who were the most in need. When I left Chrysalis, I went to USC to become a professor, and the first thing I did is I opened something called the Society and Business Lab. And the Society and Business Lab is devoted to creating new models, to engaging businesses in worldwide community needs. It's my belief that the partnership between business, between government, and between community organizations is the way of the future. And it's something that we've missed in the past. The way I approach it is by looking at what I call a stakeholder analysis. So my idea is to widen the definition of stakeholders. So when a business traditionally looked at itself with three stakeholders, customers, stockholders, and employees, I look to widen that stakeholder analysis and see how government fits in, see how the communities where they work fit in, and to try to engage that to get a better result. So I am, like you, a great believer. I am a professor of social responsibility. It's what I teach. So I'm with you 1,000% on this. I believe that this is an opportunity to do exactly what you said.
Thank you. Mr. Lamonge.
Yes, and thank you, with my wife and son here, thank you for saying nice things about me. I appreciate it.
I hope he visits the Tom Bradley Tower before he leaves. Globally, we're a global economy now. I know Richard spoke of that a little bit. What's happening to pensions in Western Europe and in Japan and other places of similar economies in the sense of its structure to the United States?
That's not my expertise, global pension funds, but without a doubt, globally, the economies are doing as poorly, if not worse, than we are.
Is anybody doing well?
Not that I've seen.
And is anybody making out in this crisis?
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Madam President, thank Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa for this appointment. Thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning.
Morning.
Has anybody introduced Janet, your lovely wife, or your son, Ilan?
No, but...
Come on over here for a second so we can see this dynamic trio here. Get closer so that we can get you in the camera.
And our two daughters are at camp, so...
They're at camp. Well, it's a pleasure to see the three of you here, and thank you for sharing your husband and your dad with us in city responsibilities. You appreciate it very much.
You can expect to see him in this chair in about 20 years.
Well, he can come in my chair.
Not your chair, sir.
The police wouldn't let him sit there. He said only electeds can sit in the chair. I figured give him an opportunity. Let me ask you this. You showed great leadership when you created and played a major role in Chrysalis. I don't know if you had a chance to discuss this, but tell us what Chrysalis is and what you did with that organization.
Sure. Well, Chrysalis is the only nonprofit devoted solely to helping homeless people get and keep a job. And we helped about 2,000 and continue to help about 2,500 to 3,000 people a year. The unique thing about Chrysalis is that part of its program was to create first job opportunities for homeless people. We ran and still run the largest street maintenance company in LA County, and over the course of a year we'll put about 1,000 people to work cleaning the streets, giving them their first job. They're the people that you see walking around the city today in purple shirts and red shirts and blue shirts. But mostly the important part was with $4.5 million worth of revenues and 1,000 employees, virtually all of those were paid by the private sector, by property owners, by mall owners, and by individual businesses. And to me, that is a great opportunity to leverage what was already existing infrastructure to help homeless people.
Very good, and that kind of leadership is welcomed in our great city, and I know you'll take that same kind of energy to this new position. Why do you want to be a commissioner of pensions for police and fire?
Thanks for asking. I am obviously a very strong believer in civil service, civic service. It is my belief that people who have skills and talents need and have a duty to apply those talents to help government, to help their community. There have been various points in my career where I've had opportunities to do that, and I will tell you that there have been times in my career where I've been offered positions like this where I didn't think I was necessarily the most qualified. When I was approached about this position, I really believe that my background in education and finance, combined with community, combined with government finance, puts me in a very unique position, and especially access to all the resources of USC, puts me in a real unique position to have the greatest impact for the city here. So to me, this is my opportunity to help the city.
And how many billions of dollars are you overseeing in terms of investments on that board?
Last year or today, I think we're at about 11 billion. 11 billion.
11 billion. When you think of this, the biggest crisis we have in our city right now is how to figure out to balance the budget. Okay, it's $500 million this year, it could be $1 billion next year, and one of the big issues and challenges is the pension and health care plan. We have 30,000 active government employees, 15,000 retirees. Many retirees go out with a package and live long, and that package costs the taxpayer a lot of money. So we find ourselves spending a lot of money, tax dollars, on health care and retirement plans for retirees as well as existing workers. How do we get out of that bind so that the tax dollar can also be used for obviously what it's for, services to the people, but at the same time we want to respect the various labor agreements, and we want to respect people who are part of health and retirement benefits. How do you see that challenge, and what will you do about it?
Well, first of all, it's my understanding that the Board of Commissioners does not have an impact on the benefits package. So what is negotiated by the city with the workers and the unions is not. So the job of the commission is to figure out how to take the asset pool, the money that's coming in, and the investment of that pool to somehow or another meet the needs as it goes on. And I agree. My mother recently told me that she thought I would live to 120 because the things that were cured 20 years ago, that would die from 20 years ago, can you imagine 20 years from now? The challenge is to make sure, as I said earlier, that we meet those agreements for those people who are looking to retire or currently retired, but at the same time come up with the most creative but responsible ways that the city can meet its budget and meet its requirements under the law, but also meet what is actually reasonable for the city to pay, especially when it goes up and down from year to year. So I intend to look at that issue very carefully, along with the rest of the board, and hopefully come up with a solution that works for both sides.
Well, thank you very much for stepping forward. And when they talk about Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, one of his major legacies will be appointing good people to boards and commissions and general managers, not political payoff, but qualified people who can make a huge difference. And you're one of them. Thank you for stepping forward. And thank you, Mayor Villaraigosa, for putting you in nomination.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Madam.
Thanks, Mr. Rosendahl. And there are no further speakers in the queue. So, Madam Clerk, if you would please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item will be 73, and I think Mr. Koretz will introduce this commissioner.
Yeah, I briefly want to rise in support of the reappointment to the Fire Commission of my district resident, Deanna Bonta, who I had the pleasure of working with when she was the director of the Department of Health Services in the state of California, and I was a member of the legislature, and also have the pleasure of interacting with her, and I know my wife does frequently as well at Kaiser Permanente, where she's vice president of public affairs, and my wife Gail is also with the public affairs department there. She's a very bright and capable individual, and we're very lucky to have her as a city commissioner.
Ms. Bonta, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. I have now served for 18 months as the City of Los Angeles Fire Department Commissioner. One of my first duties, just a few months after I had started as a commissioner, was to attend the funeral services for a firefighter who was killed in action. And it brought home to me the significant risks that our women and men of the fire department face every day in their line of duty. Over the last 18 months, I've been privileged to work with my fellow commissioners. We have handled such issues as the budget challenges. We have handled issues such as the audit action plan. We've made progress, certainly, in the selection process, beginning on the Inspector General. And we have been there to hear the reports concerning the fires that have occurred and the EMS services that are provided by the fire department. We were able to actually go afterwards on the ground to the site of the Silomar fire to learn about some of the work that the fire department had been doing as part of the fire suppression when that occurred. So I'm honored to serve, particularly with our fire commissioner, President Janethia Hudley Hayes, and I look forward to serving in this capacity.
Thank you very much. There are no further speakers on the queue, so if you would open the roll, please.
Madam President, I do believe there is also a card on that.
I'm sorry. Mr. Zuma-Dog. Mr. Dog passes. So if you would please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Congratulations, and thank you. Our next item is item 30.
And that was called special by Councilmember Cardenas.
Mr. Cardenas. Okay. Mr. Alarcon, thank you. Mr. Alarcon, what would you like to do?
I'd like to hear the card. I understand there are a lot of speakers on this, and I think we should allow for comments for the full council at this time.
All right, any other?
10 or what? How much time, 10 and 10?
Whatever Mr. Cardenas would like.
Mr. Cardenas is here, okay, great.
10 and 10? Because it's had a hearing in committee, right? Yeah,
Yes.
10 minutes and 10 minutes per se.
All right, so that's 10 for and 10 against?
Yeah.
Okay. Give us just a second, we're going to have to figure out how to separate these cards. So we'll have 10-minute hearing on each side, 10 for and 10 against. This is for it or against it? This is for the proposal. Okay, for the proposal. 10-minute. Okay, what I recommend is each person take no more than 1 minute each to get as many speakers the opportunity to speak as possible, and it will not exceed 1 minute per person. And I'm going to call these names, and then you can line up, and that'll save some time. All right, Lorette Healy, followed by Ann O'Connor, followed by Zarak Dietz, followed by Eustace King, followed by Marcia Davalos. All right, Ms. Healy, you're our first speaker.
Just a sec, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, members of the council, for hearing this matter. I have prepared some written statements, so I'll do this as quickly as possible. When the Education and Neighborhoods Committee voted on Tuesday of 2 weeks ago to approve the name change that entailed a small portion of Van Nuys to be drawn as part of Sherman Oaks, what we saw was not politics as usual, but rather an excellent example of how American politics was intended to function. The purpose of neighborhood councils, as stated in the very mission statement of their establishment, is to promote more citizen participation in government and to make government more responsive to local needs. Considering this, what does it mean when neighborhood councils' positions on an issue is clearly at odds with more than 2,000 neighborhood residents? Should the will of the neighborhood council board members supersede those that they are elected to represent? Well, the Sherman Oaks Chamber of Commerce didn't think so and voted to endorse this application. Former council member Wendy Gruhl endorsed this application using a 2006 ordinance finding no legal reason to oppose this application.
Okay, thank you very much. And before you start, ma'am, Ann O'Connor, Zarek and Eustace and Marcia Davalos, are you here? You want to come on up and line up, because I'm going to call some more names, see if I can get everybody in, if possible. Gail Salem and Kathy Gardner. And again, if you would try not to exceed more than 1 minute each so that everybody has a chance to speak, that would be great.
Ready? Thank you to the council for calling this hearing. A special thanks to former councilwoman Wendy Gruhl for her support, as well as the Committee on Neighborhoods. I'd like for the neighbors representing part of Sherman Oaks at this time to raise their hand in support. My name is Ann O'Connor, and I've lived in Sherman Oaks, Van Nuys area since we immigrated from England 52 years ago. I'd like to speak about the deeds and the historical precedent. Grant deeds and county assessor rolls identify many properties in the proposed areas being in Sherman Oaks. Some of the deeds are on file with the city clerk and were included as attachments to the application. In 1991, identical circumstances contributed to the decision to move the boundary from Magnolia to Burbank Boulevard. In a Daily News article from August 9, 1991, Mr. Yaroslavsky stated, quote, "The numerous calls and letters which I have received evidence the considerable confusion which residents of this area have experienced concerning whether they live in Sherman Oaks."
Thank you. Next speaker, if you'd identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Zarek Dietz, a past president of the Sherman Oaks Chamber of Commerce and on the Board of Beautification Committee in Sherman Oaks. The northern area of Tiara Khalifa proposed residential boundary is Oxnard Boulevard, which lies on both sides, line both sides of commercial, industrial, and bearing no resemblance to the renaming area. The orange line is constructed on city-owned property immediately north of Oxnard Boulevard and continues along commercial industrial corridor, dissecting both the renaming area and industrial areas north. And this has been seen in other areas like the Metrolink and the 405 freeway. I'm also the photographer who photographed the community on the northern side of Oxnard, choosing a grid no larger than the proposed area. This happens to be dominated by mixed-use dwellings and apartment buildings. And I just went after looking for single-family homes. There was no intention to offend, but rather to share with the people the layout of the structures in the areas for those who are not familiar with this area. A request that originated from the board of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. And we apologize if anyone did take offense to this.
Thank you. Next speaker, if you would identify yourself for the record.
How you doing? My name is Eustace King, and I'm a resident of the proposed area.
The Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council and the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council elected to oppose our renaming application. According to the Dunn's Neighborhood Council status report issued on April 9th, 2008, out of a total population of 78,000 residents, only 64 votes were cast in the most recent Van Nuys Neighborhood Council election held on February 2nd, 2008. In a similar vein, out of the 60,000 residents eligible to vote in the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood election held on September 10th, 2008, only 39 residents voted. I bring these points to the attention of the Council not to be dismissive of the important role that neighborhood councils play throughout the Los Angeles, but rather to illustrate that these particular neighborhood councils by no means represent the will of the people as it relates to a very important matter that affects the lives and the sense of community cohesiveness of the people who actually live in the renaming area, as well as the neighbors in Sherman Oaks. The people have clearly spoken in the support of the renaming application, and today we, the people, are asking the Council to hear our voice and grant us the right to rename our community.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker?
Good morning, Council. My name is Marcia Dávalos. I am the Director of the Latino Health Coalition. My family comes from Guadalajara, Jalisco, and I was born in East LA. I am a resident of this diverse and welcoming community. The opposition has talked a lot about racist intentions as the underlying motive for this request for a name change, and I am here to speak about that. I am someone who has experienced discrimination firsthand, and I deal with it every day in the work that I do, and I can personally attest to the fact that there are attempts to distract this council by using words like complexion to damage the good intentions of this community and the good reputation of the applicant, my partner, Lorette Healy. Personally, I am very disappointed by this, and I ask the council to not cater to these false accusations. I support this name change because I believe that every community should have the right to self-identification. Our community is as diverse as the city of Los Angeles, and every member of that community should have the right to self-determination. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, would you identify yourself for the record?
Hello, my name is Gail Salem, and I've lived on Norwich Avenue in the proposed area for 21 years. The effort to change our name began 2 years ago and has taken a lot of work by the petitioners to build the grassroots base through door knocking, brief meetings, signature gatherings, rallies, 4th of July parades, Easter egg hunts, Halloween parties, building of email lists, lawn signs, T-shirts, walking and talking to the business communities. Meetings and phone calls with all of the city councils and their staff, and building a website to mobilize writings and ultimately the attendance at all of our hearings. Larger applications who have gone before us have been approved. 25,000 joined Lake Balboa from West Van Nuys, and 35,000 formed Valley Glen, as well as the expansion of Studio City, Valley Village, and so many more. None have been rejected, and we hope that ours too will be approved today. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. The Education and Neighborhoods Committee approved the neighborhood name change, but my name is Kathy Gardner. I'm a stakeholder in Sherman Oaks. I'm a member of the Sherman Oaks Chamber of Commerce, and I live in the proposed area. Sorry about that. The Education and Neighborhoods Committee approved the neighborhood name change, but the committee did not make this decision lightly. They did not make this decision without respectively considering the perspective of the Van Nuys and Sherman Oaks neighborhood councils. In the end, the support of the committee can be captured in the sentiments expressed by Councilmember Alarcon, as he specifically articulated that the overwhelming support of area residents greatly affected his decision to support the renaming. Our communities are in need of neighborhood councils to represent their interests, but when that system fails them, community members can and must somehow make their voices heard. I respectfully request that the council hear the voices of this community and vote in favor of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, if you would please identify yourself. If you would say your name for the record.
I just want to say my name was not called, but my name is Amy Wolf, and I did submit.
All right, I was about to call Amy Wolf.
Okay.
And Jason Popesky and Caitlin Silver, and that'll be it for this side.
Good morning, my name is Amy Wolf. Ours is the only Van Nuys neighborhood whose children are designated by the LAUSD to attend elementary school in Sherman Oaks.
This is a public school designation and not a private school choice. It is at these public schools in Sherman Oaks where our children make and meet their friends, and as parents, so do we. Hundreds of Sherman Oaks parents, friends, and neighbors recently organized with us, petitioned, protested, and subsequently defeated a cell tower that was to be built in our neighborhood at the corner of Burbank and Kester. Ours is the only Van Nuys neighborhood south of the Orange Line, Oxnard Boulevard, and the Industrial Belt, and it is the only one. It is a half of a mile between our northern border and the closest single-family home neighborhood in Van Nuys. The closest single-family home neighborhood in Sherman Oaks is 1 block from our southern border. All of our connections to the community through our schools, the hospital, the post office, our daily commerce are with Sherman Oaks.
Thank you. Next speaker, if you would say your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Popesky. I'm a resident of the proposed area. Our opposition has argued that people come from all over the city to shop at Sherman Oaks malls or the boutiques on Ventura Boulevard, and that where you shop should not play a role in determining the name of your neighborhood. When referring to shopping, we are not talking about specifics like going to the mall or a boutique. We are referring to the daily errands and day-to-day expenditures that a resident of a particular community makes. For the residents of this neighborhood, their daily lives, errands, and expenditures take place in Sherman Oaks. The closest grocery store, walking distance from their homes, is Ralph's in Sherman Oaks. The nearest gas station to them is in Sherman Oaks. The nearest florist, dry cleaners are all in Sherman Oaks. When they call Pizza Hut in Van Nuys, they're redirected to Pizza Hut in Sherman Oaks, because that's the location that delivers to them. The post office they use is in Sherman Oaks. The list goes on, and that is why the businesses in the area and the Sherman Oaks Chamber of Commerce have fully supported this petition. This is the type of shopping that does play a role in determining one's community and identity and where one makes their daily life and expenditures. And for these residents, that community is Sherman Oaks. They are all part of Sherman Oaks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Silver, and I live in the renaming area. I just want to address some claims by our opposition that Van Nuys would be terribly adversely affected by our leaving and becoming Sherman Oaks. We ran a lot of statistics through several title companies, one of them being California Title, but several others. The numbers that we have are that of the approximately 23,000 residential dwellings in Van Nuys, we are only about 1,800 of those, which is only about 8%. When Lake Balboa was renamed, it consisted of about 10,000 residences, which at that time was about 30% of all of Van Nuys, a considerably larger amount, and yet they were allowed to rename their area, and we're just asking that we be granted the same right to do that. There was also an issue of owner-occupied dwellings as opposed to renters, and that would change dramatically. What we have for statistics there, well, I won't give you because I'm out of time. Thanks. Okay, sorry.
Thank you very much. And thanks for your understanding. We will now go to the, I think, against side. There's a few other ones that are unmarked that may be on the for side that we'll get to. But Kathleen Padden is our first speaker in Van Nuys. On the against side, thank you for your understanding before, Ms. Padden. And now it would be proper time to speak. After that is Prudy Schultz.
My name is Kathleen Padden, and I am the block captain of our Neighborhood Watch on LeMay Street in Van Nuys. I'm speaking for the residents of my block and for many other homeowners in Van Nuys. When I ask for vote no on this undemocratic and corrupt proposal to change the name of portion of Van Nuys to Sherman Oaks, first of all, this is a prime example of a minority of people forcing its will on a majority who were given no voice in a matter that significantly lessens the quality of our lives and our property values. Both the neighborhood councils of Van Nuys and Sherman Oaks vetoed and voted no on the proposed name change. Second, the reason given for the change is our sham. The area concerned was never a part of Sherman Oaks as claimed. It was, as we were, part of Van Nuys, when Van Nuys boundary stopped south of Magnolia. I know it because I lived in Van Nuys for 48 years and I remember. Third, we all know that this whole deal was put together by real estate interests to ensure more money for them and for the property owners in the disputed area. If the council believes this name change will somehow bring more money into the coffers of the city government through these corrupt practices, they need to think again.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Prudy Schultz, and again, I know it was said before at a minute after folks had public hearing in committee, so folks could just follow on the clock. That will help you guide your time. Prudy Schultz and then Don Schultz will follow, also both in Van Nuys, and then Michael McHugh will be our first speaker here in council chambers. Good morning, Ms. Schultz.
Good morning. Prudy Schultz. Here we have another name change movement that is most hateful, hurtful, and divisive. The arguments used in favor of changing their name from Van Nuys to Sherman Oaks are as weak as those arguments used in previous battles that we had over the changes to Lake Balboa and Valley Glen. The issue of crime in Van Nuys has been used time and time again, and my response to that is that criminals know no boundaries, plus the fact that our previous commanding officer of Van Nuys Division has told us a number of times that crime stats in Van Nuys are not any worse than any other community in the valley. The fact that there is a policy in effect for community name changes in Los Angeles, and the fact that both the Van Nuys and Sherman Oaks neighborhood councils have clearly expressed their opposition to this name change, I feel that before you make a final decision, it should go to a vote of the people in what is still known as Van Nuys. If this process was considered fair in the Valley secession movement, why can't you consider it fair for Van Nuys now? I am fearful that we will end up losing the entire community name of Van Nuys.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Thank you. Our next speaker is Don Schultz.
Finish my sentence?
Of course not.
No, because I'm against it.
Of course.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Don Schultz is our next speaker. Thank you, sir.
Morning, council members. My name is Don Schultz, past president of Van Nuys Homeowners Association. I'm not going to waste your time or waste my breath trying to convince you not to support this latest community name change for those individuals who do not want to be associated with Van Nuys for their own personal gratification. Instead, I'm here to tell you that the movement has started to create cityhood for the community of Van Nuys. Van Nuys-based businesses, homeowners, and residents are fed up with the treatment Van Nuys gets on a regular basis from our downtown officials. In February of 2011, Van Nuys will celebrate her 100th birthday, and I'm hoping we will be well on our way to cityhood by that time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Michael Q is our first speaker here, and then Tricia Benson will follow.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Michael McHugh.
Good morning.
Council, both the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council and the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council have reviewed the renaming issue extensively, and both have voted to oppose this proposal that pits neighbor against neighbor. I think it's unethical for Wendy to, at the last minute, support this and stab the neighborhood councils in the back before she leaves her post. And if this group of people, over 2,000 strong, had a grassroots organization organized over 2 years, and the voter turnout for the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council was very low, then the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council didn't fail them. They failed the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council. Now, Sherman Oaks and Van Nuys both had extensive hearings on this, and the letter from the city clerk proves that there is no historic precedent or jurisdiction that justifies this. This is basically roused up by a special interest, real estate, and we know that that's the grease that feeds the machine that is working here. Every vote in favor of this is a vote against grassroots.
Thank you, sir. Tricia Benson is our next speaker. Tricia Benson, and then Norma Jean Vescovo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tricia Benson, and I've come here today to say that I do not agree with the tone or the subject matter of the group, part of Sherman Oaks. Huh? Oh. There we go. Hi. Hello. Okay. As a resident of Van Nuys, just a few blocks to the north of the neighborhood in question, I fail to see how changing their name will help to improve the area as a whole. I feel that if this is allowed to occur, it will only be one more validation for the problems of the area to be ignored. There seems to be a prevalent attitude amongst many that live in the valley, as well as Los Angeles as a whole, that Van Nuys is a city with a bad reputation, and therefore, since I do not live there, it is not my problem. I choose to live in Van Nuys because of its proximity to where I and my husband work, the fact that it has easy access to the rest of Los Angeles and the Valley, as well as the quality of life that is possible in the neighborhood where I live. I really do love it here. In my opinion, Van Nuys has an amazing amount of potential, and I am tired of movements like this one creating an environment that makes it seem acceptable to trash my city. I am not suggesting that Van Nuys does not have many problems. However, I fail to see how allowing yet another segment of the city to call itself something else will do anything to solve any of those issues.
Thank you. Norma Jean Vescovo will be our next speaker. After that is Jill Barad.
My name is Norma Jean Vescovo. I'm a resident of Van Nuys and a member of the Van Nuys Council. The San Fernando Valley is part of the city of Los Angeles. It's different zip codes and different city representatives. The line between the communities are only a line. There is no real line for change in the sense of communities working together. I eat in a restaurant in Canoga Park. I go to the grocery store in North Hollywood. Everyone goes to someplace else to do something, and that's what the San Fernando Valley should be doing. I've lived there for 45 years, and our neighborhood is beautiful. There is a neighborhood in Van Nuys beyond Oxnard. When this group started in the process of this breakup, they were very, very injurious to the process. They talked about different...
Thank you, ma'am. If I can ask you to conclude, Mr. Cardenas?
Well, point of clarification, Mr. President. There were some cards you went to Van Nuys. Were they clarified that they were either for or against?
We still have some more cards. We just did them in the order we received. We got 3 other cards. I'm not sure if they were for or against. Arlene Goodman, Rick Nightingale, and Donna Perry.
I just want to make sure everybody understands we're trying to be fair. That's all.
Yeah. We're keeping it to. So our next speaker is Jill Barad. I'm sorry, and I know it's tough in a minute. I know that was what was moved and agreed on to reopen the public hearing, but if folks can follow that clock right there, it helps you guide that time and to pace it.
Yeah, I just didn't get a chance to say.
If you have anything you'd like to submit to the Sergeant at Arms too, we'd be happy to look at anybody's written testimony as well. Thank you.
Jill, what now?
Would you like to submit your speech to the Sergeant at Arms? He's happy to take it if you want.
No, because I don't have it written in front of me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jill Barad and then Candido Maras.
Good morning. My name is Jill Banks Barad, and I'm the president of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. Last year, our neighborhood council, as well as the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council, were asked to hold public meetings to discuss the proposed name change. After carefully listening to the public testimony, we found no compelling reason to approve the proposal. Our council voted overwhelmingly to oppose that name change. The claim that their children go to school in Sherman Oaks, that they shop in Sherman Oaks, are specious arguments. It became very clear to us that the real reason for the name change was their unabashed desire to increase property values, and because the proponents believe they are better than the people living in Van Nuys. In fact, the proponents' leader said several times, and we have this on tape, that they were of common complexion and values as the people in Sherman Oaks. It's important to point out that can I just finish my sentence? Thank you. That although there have been many name changes in the Valley, this is the first time that a community is not choosing a new name, but is attaching itself to an existing community.
Thank you. And it's always, when I say in the chair, I always let people finish the sentence they're on. But just the sentence they're on, everybody. Candido Maras, and then Michelle Hutchins will follow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council members, I'll speak quickly. My favorite movie is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and there's a line in there where Mr. Stewart says, lost causes are the only causes worth fighting for. Some people consider Van Nuys a lost cause. It's not a lost cause. I would ask my friends and our neighbors to the south of us, please don't give up on us. Join us. Help us fight. We have been trying in Van Nuys to turn Van Nuys around for the last 6 years. We brought in a community court, and that wasn't supported. We have tried to improve the business district, the cleanup contract we have. That has not been helped. We need your help if we're going to turn Van Nuys Boulevard around. Van Nuys is part of your community, and you are part of our community. Mr. Cardenas, for 6 years,
If you could please
I asked you...
if you could address the council as a whole, please.
I asked the councilman, we stood on Van Nuys Boulevard, and I asked him, if you turn this area around, we can make Van Nuys a better place to live, and it's never happened. We can't blame Mr. Smith because he supported his area, or Miss Gruhl because she supported her area. I have to take responsibility as a member of the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council for the failures that have taken place. So I apologize to all of you for allowing Van Nuys to deteriorate, but we promise you we
Michelle
will work hard
Hutchins
each
is
and
our
every
next
day to make
speaker.
it better.
Thank you, Michelle Hutchins, and then Lydia Mather. And after Lydia Mather will be Maria Schertzer.
Hi, I'm Michelle Hutchins. I'm on the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council, and we're trying very hard to revitalize Van Nuys, which is a historical area with tremendous potential for improvement. I am a longtime resident of Van Nuys, and I've already had my property values go down when parts of Van Nuys became Valley Glen and Lake Balboa. I am practically right across the street from Valley Glen, and my property values are 30% less than houses right across the street. This annexation is a money grab by a few residents, and it hurts the rest of us left in Van Nuys. I urge all council members to stand up for the majority of the residents of Van Nuys and not permit the tearing apart of our community for the profit of a few. And I urge the residents who want to break away because it will raise their property values to work instead for the betterment of Van Nuys so that all of our property values go up, not just theirs.
Thank you, ma'am. Lydia Mather is our next speaker. After that is Maria Schertzer.
Hello, my name is Lydia Mather. I'm the president of Van Nuys Neighborhood Council. First thing I want to quickly address is voter apathy is a problem throughout the city, but when everybody's got an issue, you can sure fill a chamber, and that's our case at neighborhood councils also. Today we're here to decide the destruction of an original community in Los Angeles. The move to take the southern portion of Van Nuys' 1,855 single-family homes is about 70% of our single-family home populace. The VNNC stands that it will irreparably harm Van Nuys at a time we're facing an uphill struggle to revitalize and change perceptions of Van Nuys from one of despair and decline to the more accurate reality of neighborhoods, of good neighborhoods with a solid, diverse community. The name change group claims that they should be Sherman Oaks, citing common complexion and values, Sherman Oaks and not Van Nuys. This, unlike the secession movement, in the Valley secession movement, that was, everybody in the city got to vote on that and found that it was for the greater good of the city to allow them to stay together.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Maria Schertzer is our last speaker.
I have one more thing to say. And
I'm sorry, we have to try to keep it as even as possible, but if you do have it written down, we'd be happy to look at it if you'd like to give it to the sergeant at arms to your right. Maria Schertzer. Thank you. We'll make sure we'll get circulated.
Do I have half a minute or a minute?
1 minute. There's a clock right there to help guide you.
Okay. Thank you, council members. Do not be misled by this deceptively titled proposal. Do not be fooled that this proposal is about a benign name change. In fact, it's about a hostile transfer of a neighborhood to another community. The proponents, and perhaps even some of the council members, may defend this proposal with the process. However, the process is flawed because, in fact, it inflicts harm on the majority to profit the few. The process is flawed because it's the tyranny of the few over the will of the majority. Council members, do not be deceived. This proposal is not about self-determination. Rather, it's about greedy bigots who are manipulating a flawed process. It's about a group who in public comment have repeatedly emphasized their complexion and that their community identity is much more in tune with Sherman Oaks, and they have nothing in common with the identity, the demographic identity of Van Nuys. Complexion and demographic identity.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That will close our general comments. We just want to read into the record there had been a motion, I believe, for 10 and 10. So Monica Alexenko, Al Vescovo, Arlene Goodman, Rick Nightingale, and Donna Pearman had submitted cards. We had the hearing in committee. That will return it back to council debate, and Mr. Cardenas is first on the queue.
Thank you very much. I've been looking at this issue quite a bit, and it actually abuts my district, that's Oxnard. And I think it's important for us to understand that this effort has been going on for months and months and months. And when you look at the website of information that was put up by the proponents, it looks very different today than it looked months ago when we looked into it. And the moment the Daily News reported that there were some very stark contrasts between the pictures that they took of the Van Nuys that wants to be left, that they want to leave behind, and this part of Van Nuys that they want to be part of Sherman Oaks, there was a stark contrast in the way the pictures were laid out, and it certainly painted a picture that Van Nuys is this disheveled, derogatory-looking place, and that where they live, or the proponents who put up this website, that it's completely different and so nice and so wonderful, and that they don't want to be associated with that other community. In addition to that, Ms. Healy, in various public places, such as she's one of the proponents, such as the neighborhood council meetings, used the term complexion several times. And the fact of the matter is, I've never heard of people using that term unless they're talking about people. And when the person, Ms. Healy, was asked to clarify that on public radio, she finally said, oh yes, she finally admitted that she said it after denying it, and said, I was talking about the buildings, the actual structures. So I think it's very important for us to take into a context where some of this is coming from, and the fact of the matter is, I think that our processes are not made for those kinds of things. It's just not made for those kinds of things. There's legitimate reasons why certain neighborhoods have changed their name or what have you, or been annexed to other parts, things of that nature, but this is a process that started out very, very different than what you saw today. And I want to thank the neighborhood councils for being very diligent and allowing the debate to go on at the neighborhood council level as well. And as was mentioned earlier, both the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council and the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council voted to say no, they do not agree with this split. In addition to that, I wanted to also point out that somebody put out this map, and this map is inaccurate because it doesn't show the finger that goes on Van Nuys Boulevard through this area, that for some reason they're saying, okay, let's change the residential part of this, but not that part of Van Nuys, and just Van Nuys Boulevard, and just leave it Van Nuys. So that to me is an inconsistency as well. In addition to that, I have a letter from the city clerk's office dated February 6th, basically reminding us that some people who are proponents are claiming that this part of Van Nuys, the part that wants to break away from Van Nuys and be called Sherman Oaks, was actually being called Sherman Oaks for some time. And the city clerk, who actually checks these things out for us, has a letter dated February 6, 2009 saying, I cannot find city records that substantiate the claim of the applicant that the area in question was recognized as part of Sherman Oaks prior to being assigned a Van Nuys zip code and the post office designation in the early 1960s. And it says, indeed, council district maps from 1949-1950 show that the area was known as Van Nuys as early as the 1940s. So that argument that was made both in committee and out in the public that this was actually called Sherman Oaks at one time and they should revert back to that, that's just not accurate. That's by the city clerk. The city clerk is not a politician. The city clerk just checks things out and puts it in writing as they did here. In addition to that, I'd like to thank the people of Van Nuys who want to remain Van Nuys and recognize that Van Nuys is a beautiful place made of a lot of beautiful people, even if a handful of people who live in Van Nuys actually live in subsidized housing, as was pointed out by the former president of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council when he took pictures and just a few minutes ago explained that, hey, he didn't mean to offend anybody, but that's just what's going on the other side of Oxnard. And I wonder, is part of this to want to separate yourself or have another some kind of delineation between people who live in subsidized housing and people who don't? I don't know, but I have the right to take that that way as well. So anyway, the bottom line is, my district abuts this. Unfortunately for the proponents, we do not have a council member sitting here representing that area at this moment, and so it's left up to the 14 council members today, not 15, when we have a full complement. And I would like to urge my colleagues to vote no on this item.
Our next speaker is Mr. Koretz, and then Mr. Alacon.
Well, this is a difficult issue for me as a resident of East Beverly Hills. Explain that. or potentially East Beverly Hills if we did the same thing that's going on here. There are arguments on both sides. An article in 1991 in the LA Times said that there is a clear connection and that this area was considered Sherman Oaks until 1961. There are supposedly grant deeds and assessors' rolls that show this area as Sherman Oaks. Wendy Gruhl did support it, although I think this was a hard call for her. The Sherman Oaks Chamber of Commerce supports it, and it would empower this neighborhood that would like to move to Sherman Oaks. On the other side, both neighborhood councils, both in Van Nuys and Sherman Oaks, opposed it, and we certainly want to empower the neighborhood council system. There are community leaders in both communities that oppose it. Our city clerk studies found that they couldn't document this area being called Sherman Oaks, and many people view this as a swipe at Van Nuys. So I would like to suggest a Solomon-like conclusion to this, and one of two choices. One, we could name it Van Oaks, make it sort of a demilitarized zone. Or a more serious suggestion would be akin to what I think Tony was saying also, to hold this item for 6 months until we actually have a current council member to weigh in on what would happen in the district that they represent.
Is that a motion, council member?
Mr. Koretz, the city clerk wanted to know if that's a formal motion to...
That would be a motion.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? All right, we have a second. Mr. Alarcon?
How the hell did I end up with this? Mr. Koretz, your interpretation of Solomon is a little different than mine. I believe at the end of the day, the decision was made by the mother to give up her child. And I think that's exactly what has to happen today. Look, I'm not here to defend name changes. You know, I just happen to be the chair of the committee that had this land up in our committee. I'm disappointed, frankly, that Wendy Gruhl did not move more expeditiously on this matter so that she could argue on behalf of her position right now, as opposed to waiting till the last minute and put this in our committee and give the decision to Ms. Hahn and I, who were in attendance at that meeting. But the fact of the matter is, when I walked into the committee meeting, I had intended to take no position and just let the cards fall where they may and let the community argue to the council. But when I heard the arguments, it was clear to me that the people of this particular area, by vast majority, support the change for whatever reason. And the question I have is, how do we define, number one, why do we even have a dumb process if we know we're just going to go with whatever the council member says? And number two, how do we define what arguments have merit? I mean, if they choose to, when somebody wants to change their name in court, all they have to do is fill out a little paper, and I think they pay like $5 or $10, and boom, it's done. Why do we have to come up with all kinds of criteria about this name change? If they want it because they perceive that it will increase the values of their property, so be it. If they want it for other reasons, like them or not, who are we to say they can't have that name change? Now, frankly, had the council member been opposed to the name change, I would have worked very hard to accommodate the council member, because my assumption is the council member knows best about their community and what their community needs. Not to say that I'll do whatever the council member says. We've had our disagreements, obviously. But in the case of a name change, look, I've gone through name changes, I've authorized name changes, and I've moved name changes, and it ain't something that's very easy. So my assumption is the council member worked very hard to figure out what she was going to do in this case. So it did weigh heavily on me that the council member after going through that process, and in committee they did demonstrate that they went through that process, felt that this community was entitled to the name change. I do want to differ with, I know that Tony Cardenas is fighting for Van Nuys to keep it as a whole. If we really believe that, then we should have fought in the redistricting process to keep Van Nuys in the shape that it wasn't. Why is it that we stood up to a redistricting process that allowed for this particular community to be separated from the other parts of Van Nuys? There's a reason for that. And probably a multitude of reasons, but one of the reasons is it was probably more like the other community. And so there's a whole bunch of, we could get into the rationale. At the end of the day, to me, it boils down to the fact that the vast majority of people who live in that area, which is about 90% residential, want to change their name. And as Solomon, the mother needs to let her child go for the well-being of the child. What good would it do if we said no to them? Would it inspire Van Nuys somehow? Would it diminish the neighborhood sentiment that they in fact have no control of their government? And so I fall on the side of the council member at the time of the district, Wendy Gruhl, and say, let these people go to Sherman Oaks.
All right, our next speaker is Ms. Hahn. Our next speaker is Ms. Hahn. And then we have Mr. Koretz for a second.
I couldn't hear with the...
No, I know. Go ahead. Don't worry, Ms. Hahn.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I pushed my button when the motion came forward to postpone this 6 months until a council member was sitting there. But I feel that would be really insensitive in a way to this community who has worked tirelessly, has gone through the process, has done everything we set up for a community to do when they wanted to do a name change, that to now say, by the way, you have to have a council member sitting there, because that really wasn't part of the process that we set up. And by the way, however you feel about this policy, we did set up a policy in the city to sort of make communities jump through some hoops before the idea of changing their name came up. Previously, as you remember, it was pretty much the council member just brought it forward to the council and said, I'd like to change the name of this community. So we did set up a process. And however you feel about it, that process did happen. And I kind of feel like Councilmember Alarcon, in the committee, it was pretty overwhelming that the majority of people who live in this community really came together to ask for us to allow them to change their name. And I think when we heard from Councilwoman Gruhl, and she struggled with it too, because it is. There's, as Paul Koretz said, there's arguments on both sides that make a lot of sense. But at the end of the day, for her, and what she told me was that there was no real reason to deny this. And if we can't come up with a real good reason on why we should deny this, then I think, colleagues, today is the right day to allow them to go forward with changing their name, if that's what the majority of the residents who live there want to do. And I believe in a city as large as Los Angeles, I always believe that if we can give neighborhoods, if we can give communities another reason to sort of love where they live, and own where they live, and feel like they've been part of the process of actually choosing a name for themselves, then I think ultimately we are all going to be better off. And the whole city, in my view, is made up of a bunch of neighborhoods. And the more we can get those neighborhoods to love themselves, to be a process of really owning themselves, then I think we're all going to be better off. So I would urge that we not postpone this any longer, and that today we actually allow them to go forward with the change of the name that they have requested from us.
Our next speaker for the first time is Mr. Rosendahl for the first time, and then Mr. Koretz and Mr. Cardenas are also on the queue for a second time. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to everybody here who are making the democracy work.
nothing I like better than seeing the chambers filled with people who care and have passion. Apparently there's 1,855, according to Rick Arloff's column, residents that live in the area that would like to become part of Sherman Oaks. Is that true? 1,855? And is it the general position of the 1,855 to become part of Sherman Oaks? Well, if the numbers are there, and people would like to be part of one community or another, and it's the majority of the people, frankly, that's grassroots democracy at its best. I don't want to make a big deal. So I'll support it becoming part of Sherman Oaks. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
I think many things that has been said have all been said well. I think what Janice Hahn said and what Richard Alarcon said talks about when people love it. I'm a history guy. I love the city's history. I love Mulholland and all those who came here. But I absolutely know when people are passionate and they want to try to adjust that, it does engage people to have more passion for their community. So I stand with the committee report and the acting caretaker for the 2nd District's report to go forward with this as a committee.
Mr. Koretz. Mr. Koretz for a second time, then Mr. Cardenas.
Well, I could continue with my Solomon analogy and suggest that we give back this area to Mother Van Nuys, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I can see where this discussion is going. I'm going to withdraw my motion. It's a hard call, but I think my vote is going to go with the people that are empowered and have done the work to make this community part of Sherman Oaks.
Mr. Cardenas.
I just want to make a couple of points of clarification. I don't believe that because we finally have some semblance of a process, just because people go through the process, by the time it gets to the floor of the council, we should just say, well, they went through the process, so let's just approve it. I think we still should look at the merits of it. We still should look at how it arrived here. We should take into account the testimony that happened on all sides of the issue, and we should look at what our departments have to say about it whenever they have issues to clarify, such as when people give misinformation over and over and over, and then our departments say, no, that's not true. I think those are the things that we should take into account as well, and that's just part of what I think we should be considering. Also, to Mr. Rosendahl, council member, it's my understanding that there's 1,855 addresses of households in that area. Unless there's only one person living in each household, then you only have 1,855 people. So, but if you have an average household like in the San Fernando Valley, it probably has 3 to 4 people, then you're talking about having 4, 5, 6, 7,000 people living there. So when you break it down to 5, 6, 7, 800 signatures, it's not even close to the majority of the people who live there. For example, so you have, if each household happens to have 2 adults in it, and only one adult signed, the other one doesn't, you're not getting to the majority of the people in that fashion either. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. In addition to that, I also wanted to point out that another thing as well that I never agreed that we should do as elected officials is just listen to the applause and then decide, well, the bigger applause, let's go with the bigger applause. So why don't we just put this item over, if we want to use that as our litmus test, and just put the call out to all communities and say, on this issue, why don't you come fill the council chambers, or maybe we'll have it in a stadium, and see everybody who's for it on this side, everybody who's against it on that side, and let's have an applause contest, and then see whoever brought the most people, and just go that way. But even if we did that, I still think that would not be the right way to handle things. I think that as intelligent elected officials like ourselves, we should be looking at the facts. We should be taking into account, reaching into the meetings and things of that nature and hearing all the sides about where they came from and what they're talking about. And one of the things that weighs heavy with me is who the messengers are. And when some people use the term like complexion over and over, and then they deny that they used it, and then they denied it, they
Please
used it.
sit down, sir.
You got to also look at the
If you
message.
could please sit down, sir.
As well.
We'll maintain order while we are here.
So the bottom line is, and as an elected official, I'm very, very well aware that I'm standing in front of people who are going to remember my face and remember my name and then choose how to deal with me later or what have you. I appreciate and respect that. This is a democracy. So please allow me to speak and finish what I had to say. I did the same for you. So at the same time, members, I do not believe in rewarding bad behavior. This is a process that has a lot of elements that got to where we are today, and I don't believe it's about the biggest applause. I think it's about doing the right thing, and today I would prefer that we deny this.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Wesson.
Move the previous question.
Well, there's nobody else on the queue, so that should sail through smoothly. And we now have the proposal, the report from the Education and Neighborhoods Committee before us. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 2 noes.
That is approved. If we can go to the next order of business, or next item.
Item 5, called special for cards.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Item 5 is now before us, and we have one speaker, Sean Said. I know there's a lot of folks that are here and excited or disappointed. If we could just ask you to try to keep your conversation to a minimum for our next item, and we thank you all for your patience and your participation very much today. Thank you for taking your time out. Sean Said is our speaker on number 5. If I could direct the council's attention to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is Sean Said. I'm the owner of the 3900 North Figueroa. There is a misrepresentation by the city building and safety as far as the businesses within the location, and also my address as an owner appear something else. So they tried to notify me several times within last year, and to get my attention that the businesses within the location, they're not paying for the inspection yearly basis, and there is 3 businesses involved over there, and one owns the 2 other businesses, and then the business hasn't been there for 2 years, and they're claiming that they have gone over there, they did the inspection, and he had some canopy violation, whatever. That's the only things they found it. And I really like to, at this moment, have more time to clear the record as far as the county record, my address, and also get these new businesses over there to show me all their records and what they paid to the city for the inspection, or they haven't paid, and either they are obligated to pay, it's fine. If they don't want to pay, I take over and I pay for it, and then clear the record once for all. And because one of the businesses hasn't been there for 2 years, the city is claiming that he has sent a notice to him, and he's been there and he's paying, he hasn't paid for the inspection notice. And that's all I need. I need more times, at least 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get these things clear. Thank you.
I know this is in the first council district, and Mr. Reyes was unexpectedly not able to be here today. With that, I would move to continue this one day, if there's no objection, so we can see if we can get Mr. Said together with that council district. Okay? So if there's no objection, we'll continue that one day till tomorrow, the 15th, which should give you some time to talk to the council district, and we'll connect you. Next item, please.
Item 26, called special by Councilmember Parks.
We have item number 26, Mr. Parks called special. And we could go to the next one, or?
Item 74, called special for cards.
Alrighty. We'll go to 74 then in the meantime. And we have Zuma Dog. Mr. Dog here? If not, he does not seem to be here. We'll close the public hearing. Please prepare the roll on 74 and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. And then we'll go back, Mr. Parks, to item number 26.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask the staff to come up. The reason I call this special is that we've had so many comments from the community about what the city is doing on the issue of foreclosure, and I think although this is dealing with, I guess, phase 2 of the purchase, rehabilitation, and such, it closes one of the gaps, and there's still a lot of discussion about whether there's ever going to be any foreclosure money for prevention or foreclosure money that deals with commercial property. But I would just like you to go through it because it is significant interest. In my district alone, we have, I think, 20-some hundred foreclosures, half of which are multifamily. But this is something in which people have been waiting to hear about. Actual funds maybe coming on the street to hit the foreclosure market. So you can give us an overview of it. I think it'd be important to the public to know that.
Sure. Good afternoon, Yolanda Chavez with the Housing Department. As you know, council member, we're requesting authority today to submit a $100 million grant for the second phase of the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, or NSP2. This money, just like the NSP formula grant we received, the $32.8 million, will be used to acquire and rehabilitate foreclosed and abandoned properties. Part of the program, as you know, the component is to first provide down payment assistance and rehab loans to potential home buyers that want to buy foreclosed homes in the targeted areas. And then the second phase, as you know, we set up a nonprofit holding company, Restore Neighborhoods Los Angeles, or RNLA, that will be purchasing foreclosed and abandoned properties in bulk and then put them out to bid to, first on the multifamily side, to developers to maintain and to rehab and to maintain as affordable housing. On the single-family side, again, to potential new homeowners to be able to purchase once they're rehabbed. In terms of the first phase of the program, we'll be starting a major marketing effort next week. It got off to a bit of a slow start because the money did not become available, that $32.8 million, until about a month ago. So we were able to finally sign the contract with the holding company to move forward on the program, and so next week we'll be starting a major effort. In terms of this grant, this $100 million grant, it is due to HUD by Friday, and we will be notified on an award by December 1st.
Okay. Now, this is purchasing or bundling property citywide.
Well, actually, if you look at, I think, some of the maps that are in the transmittal, and I'm going to ask Claudia, who's one of the folks who's been working on the maps, to pass out an additional map for your review.
Okay.
The money can only be expended in the target areas as determined by HUD risk scores. And those risk scores are based on the number of foreclosures, the number of subprime loans in those areas, the unemployment rate, and the percent change of unemployment rate between 2007 and 2008. So for this new phase of the program, or NSP2, the HUD risk factor is actually at a higher standard. And so what you'll notice on the maps is that although a lot of the census tracts that are eligible for this next phase are part of NSP2, there are not as many census tracts as with the first program, and there are a couple of new areas that qualify, but they all surround the NSP1 area. So it's not citywide, it has to be expended in those target areas within the city.
But it's very similar to the first phase.
Yes.
Okay. The other issue is the public. I think there's some figures that have been published as to telling people what are the requirements and qualifications. Could they get that over your website?
Yes. In fact, we created a very easy-to-use website so that potential buyers and real estate agents and lenders can actually see if a property qualifies for this program. And it's on our website, and it was actually highlighted in government technology because it's extremely unique in the sense that, you know, we're the first city that creates this type of a website to assist potential buyers to find a home that they can purchase through this program.
Could you give that website to the public?
Yes, it's www.lhd.lacity.org.
Okay. And then just as your re-comment on the issue of the current program, Phase 1, the money has been available about a month, so that program is moving forward.
It's moving
When
forward.
could we expect, if we're successful in this grant, to actually the money is in hand?
in this current application that we'll be submitting, we'll know by December 1st whether we received an award. When we do receive the award, and we're confident that we will, although we'll know exactly how much of an award we would have received by December 1st, we will come back to you with a detailed budget on the program.
And I think also one point that's important is you said that this grant covers both single-family and multifamily units for purchase and rehabilitation.
Exactly, both single-family and multifamily.
Okay. And then the one thing I just asked, as you work through this and the other grants in the future, anything that gives any indication that there may be funds available for prevention of foreclosures, and particularly prevention on multifamily residences, we'd really appreciate that be something that's facilitated.
Yes, we are, keeping a very close eye on any new grants, any new bills that may be able to provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we had Ms. Hahn and then Mr. Labange next. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. Hi, okay, I might have missed if you answered this, but obviously there were, many of us had concerns because the Housing Authority was also applying for this money, and part of that money, I believe, was going to be directed toward Jordan Downs in the Watts community for a complete transformation of that housing development into mixed use, home ownership, retail. So has there been discussions with the Housing Authority by your department on what they were applying for, what they were going to use it for, and is there a way that I could be assured that you'll also be maybe working with them and looking at that particular project in Watts?
Well, I should state that NSP funds are not eligible, or you cannot, I just say, the redevelopment of public housing is not eligible under this money. So you cannot use NSP funds to redevelop public housing. I think you...
What are they going for the money for?
I think you're aware that we had actually have been in discussions with the Housing Authority.
It was to purchase property.
It's to purchase property, but you can't use it to redevelop public housing.
No, but the purchasing of the property is critical to the redeveloping.
Well, as I was started
of that project.
Right, as I started to mention, we have been in discussions with HACLA under the current NSP program about the holding company purchasing homes surrounding Jordan Downs. And of course purchasing them, rehabilitating them, and then selling them to the Housing Authority because their goal was to use those homes to be as part of their Jordan Downs relocation effort.
Right, their one-for-one replacement. Right.
So just so you know, we are in discussions with them on the current program because they have some relocation funds they'd like to use to purchase some of these homes through our holding company. On the NSP2 grant, we have not had discussions because we were not aware they were applying until Wednesday evening of last week.
And where was the breakdown? Where was the breakdown there? I mean, particularly,
I could not tell you, Councilwoman, but I can tell you that our last meeting on the MOU for the discussion we've been having on this NSP1 application, our last meeting on that was June 30th, and they never made us aware that they were applying. So I
think that was also very troubling to us, and I think there's a lot of fault to go around, I'm sure. But part of what we've been assured of is that there's these working groups, particularly coordinated by the mayor's office, on how we go after these stimulus dollars. And so you all report to the mayor. It's the mayor's working group. It's a weekly, it's supposed to be a weekly group talking about going after these stimulus funds. So how did that occur? That two departments under the mayor's purview were not talking to each other?
Unfortunately, I cannot answer that, but I can tell you the mayor's office was well aware that we were applying for these funds.
Well, again, what's the point of the working groups?
I think that's only a question the mayor's office can answer.
Well, I I mean, I think that's important. Yeah, it's important to all of us, particularly those of us who sit on the ad hoc committee that oversees these grants. So it's we've got to have better communications. But I think what's important to me going forward is that you're in communications.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Like I
because
said,
that's
we
a
have-
project that is critical to that community. And again, these funds were going to be used to purchase the property.
Right, but as I mentioned, we have been discussing this
Okay, good.
MOU and agreement for NSP1 for these purchase of homes from HACLA through RNLA. So we are in discussions of that. Once we hear about this grant, we'll have to determine how this can be worked through. And of course, the uses, because it really depends how you're using the money and what type of housing you're creating. And you have to meet certain outcomes with this money.
Right. Well, I just want you to know that it's a project that's extremely important to me. It's something that we are pinning a lot of hopes and dreams on. So hopefully we can work together and communicate so that ultimately the residents of Los Angeles will benefit from these stimulus dollars.
And I can tell you we're committed to that.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Lavange.
Thank you very much. In our community, the impact of this here, $100 million is a lot of money, but what do you project that to be? How many
units? About 1,200.
1,200. Now, have you met across the table with people in banking institutions that are restructuring loans right now?
Not so much about restructuring, but we are part of the National Stabilization Trust, and so we are working with lenders through them to negotiate the purchase of foreclosed properties.
I haven't done this, but I wanted to do this. I wanted to stop by some of the local banks, which are fluid. Right now, every day they're dealing with these challenges and the challenge of those people who have these challenges to see what is happening. So I want to just get a pulse from the real sense. What are your staff, what kind of relationship?
On the loan restructurings?
Right.
I think that from what we hear, we're in constant communication with the home buyer counseling agencies, because many of them are assisting homeowners through the process. And I can tell you that it's been very slow because the banks are overwhelmed with applications for modifications. That's part of the challenge. The process is going very slow.
Okay, so how do we, what's our best way to communicate to the people who need this help?
On the modifications, I think we could do more in terms of letting them know what website and actually providing the list of home buyer educators that could assist them. So we can do more of that, and that could be part of the
But do we
marketing
get the
effort.
data that knows that in these zip codes there's so many homes that are foreclosed?
Well, we have all of those.
I know.
You should have them
Can we
on-
knock on the door of someone and say, I'm with the city of Los Angeles, I'm here to help?
Well, now you should know that this data on foreclosed homes, these homes are foreclosed, they're vacant.
Right, okay.
So the modification program is actually for homeowners that are trying to save their homes.
Right, so those people though, the ones with the $100 million,
Right, but
how are we going to reach those people?
Well, unfortunately, this money is not for that purpose. This money is only for the purchase and rehabilitation of foreclosed and abandoned properties. So as Mr. Parks mentioned earlier, part of the challenge that we have is that we don't have prevention money.
Right.
Now, a lot of the prevention money did go to the homebuyer counseling agencies, and that's what they're using to assist homeowners going through the loan modification process.
But to be clarified, the $100 million to be used to what?
To purchase, or rehabilitate foreclosed and abandoned properties.
And who's purchasing them?
The housing department and in contract
And
with
then
our holding company.
how soon are we selling them out again?
As soon as they're rehabbed, so.
Okay, will there be a property tax gap in that time when you purchase them?
When we purchase them, when the holding company purchases them, they're responsible for the property. So that
property
includes
tax-
paying property taxes,
Right,
all of that.
they won't become public property, we're just facilitating it.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you for your assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. There are no additional speakers in the queue. Would you please open the roll? Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Next item.
Item 77, called special by Councilmember Smith, and an amending motion has been circulated, and there are cards on this. 77, 78 together.
77 and 78
Yeah,
together?
they're on the same basic topics. And there's also an amending motion has been circulated on that as well.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. If I could have a DOP staff come forward, please. While they're coming forward, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if there'll be much debate on this today, but the staff is here to answer questions. But basically, when this council approved going forward on the drafting of the Water Conservation Ordinance, it was a rather broad policy stroke. We recognize that there are some flaws in that and have introduced a number of motions to look at exemption for things or people that really should be exempted for different reasons. One is, I had a discussion with a lady who had severe arthritis in her hand. She's 80 years old. She says, you know, you say I can go out and water my lawns any day I want with my hose, but I can't hold a hose and I can't stand out in the sun. So I think we need to look at ADA compliance issues, people that really are unable to do that on their own. And there's not going to be a lot of those people, but we should be cognizant there are people out there like that. We have motions still coming forward on horses and hospitals, which I know the staff is working diligently on. We're also concerned about high severity fire zones. One of the concerns I have is a good third of my district is in those zones. Mr. Zines, the 2nd District, Mr. LaBonge, certainly your area. Ms. Hahn has a large area. Mr. Corrett's a huge area. And I want to be cognizant of the fact that in some of those areas that we don't want to discourage people from watering hillsides, and particularly when you have common ownership in homeowner associations where they have to maintain common properties. The last thing we want to do is those areas go brown, creating a conflagration problem if you have a major fire. And so we want to be cognizant of those issues, and before you have the Department of Water and Power, who has these two motions, in addition to which we have two amending motions to both 77 and 78 that add some language in there as the amendment talking about water and climate control, or moisture control and climate controlled water meters. And one of the concerns I had is that there are people out there that have those meters, they are not adjustable. You cannot turn them off on Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. They are automatic, and there is no adjustment to them. So we have to be cognizant of that, but at the same time, as I've investigated the matter, it's become very clear, and I'll have Warren Power talk on this, that those devices actually create water conservation way beyond the 15% that is our goal. And so it is in our best interest, I believe, to encourage people to use those, and one of the things we're suggesting in these motions is to have the department report back in 30 days as to whether the board be willing to look at a rebate program and or buying those for people and just distributing them, because it creates tremendous water conservation. So on those points, if you would just briefly brief the council on where those discussions are, where we can get back to the council in 30 days on that, where the board is on that, because they have to prove that, and then answer any questions we may have. I don't think there'll be a lot of questions, but in case there are. So if you would please give a brief discussion, appreciate it.
Right. Thank you, Councilman Smith. My name is Jim McDaniel. I'm the Senior Assistant General Manager for the Department of Water and Power in charge of the water system. We'd be happy to take a look at these items that you've raised, possible amendments to the conservation ordinance. As you stated, we have some of these are already in progress based on previous discussions we've had with the council, and we're in the process of bringing some things. We have an item on the horse and the disability issue on the rate part of the ordinance that will be before Councilwoman Perry's committee this afternoon. I will have John Chen, our Director of Customer Services, address the rebate issue on the programs. John runs the programs for us. I just wanted to state, just for everybody's general information, that we still are in a water shortage. There still is a need to conserve. We should have numbers in probably in a day or so for June's conservation. We're hoping that's the first full month that the ordinances were in place, and we're hoping for some really dramatic results. On the issue of the weather-based controllers are a best practice, and it's something we certainly want to encourage. One of the things that I'll have to struggle with and balance a little bit, and I'll have to get back to you in my report, is just the fact that there's a limited amount of water. Basically, we just don't have enough water for everybody to do what they want. So what tools do we have, as opposed to just best management practices day in and day out, when we really have to cut back? What do we have available to us? So I'll address that in the report that I bring back to the council.
And I appreciate it. Mr. Chen, you have any?
Yes, Councilman. We currently have a rebate about $200 for each of those smart irrigation system, and we are actually in the process of wanting to purchase some additional devices to provide free of a charge to the customers at for the Department of Water and Power service territory. So we'll come back with a report in 30 days and give you full details on the.
And is my understanding correct that these devices, these two, the water, either the moisture-based and or the GPS-based systems, actually do reduce water by up to 30%, not the 15 that we are looking at? Is that correct?
It can depending on how they've been watering in the past. You know, some people who just turn the water on every day, they can have huge savings by using one of these devices. Somebody who's paying a little more attention to it may not be as dramatic, but like I said, we still consider them a best practice and we still encourage their use.
Great. I appreciate very much your comments. I know there's a number of councilmen who want to ask questions, so I'll reserve my right to speak again if necessary, but I thank you for that. The fire department is also here if you have any questions about fire zone issues, but I think most of us that have those districts understand that issue very well. But thank you very much, and I'll push my button again if I need to.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to carry on Mr. Smith's motion talks about rebates in the sense of people using the equipment. We were working on a motion, and we want to do a friendly amendment to his because I think it fits right into it, is that with the smart technology that we have seen the success on our own city property and parks and a variety of places, that there be some type of a waiver from the conservation program for people using that smart technology as it relates to functioning, that it's got to be properly functioning, but that we'd also be able to give some consideration. One of the things that's come to light in the last few months as we have gone through some of the conservation, places like our Rose Garden and many of our parks are suffering significantly because of the conservation, and I don't think that was our intent, but if they're equipped with this smart technology, it would appear that they be given some type of a different scale or a different evaluation, because I don't think our intent was to destroy the Rose Garden or make our parks look like they're desolate. And so I'll give the wording to the clerk, but we just would like to add as part of that study that you also study the feasibility of exempting residential, commercial, and city properties from the water conservation program that install and have properly functioning weather-based sprinkler controllers, moisture-based sprinkler controllers, or smart sprinkler technology, and so that you add that as part of the study, and we'll give the wording to the clerk so they can add it to the file.
Madam President, I'll second that and accept it as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. That'll be without objection. Thank you, Mr. Parks. Mr. Koretz.
Yeah, not a question. I just wanted to make the point. I just got through a very active election and talked to hundreds of people in the hillsides, and there's a lot of concern expressed about the counterintuitiveness of living in a high fire danger area and being limited in how much they can water. I think it's obvious to hundreds of people, it should be obvious to us, that we need to tweak this a little bit. This one bad fire could wipe out all the savings that we save in water and do incredible damage to all the folks involved. So I'd like us to look at this and establish some flexibility in it.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for your leadership on this and bringing you before us to have this healthy discussion. First thing is I want you to take this email that we received from a constituent in Sunland, Tahunga, and talk to these folks, Tony and Tommy Lynn Bowling, and answer their concerns and questions. Could I ask the fire department to come up for a quick second, please? Hold my time. Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Would you state your name for the records?
Chief David Yamahata, Chief of Staff for the Fire Department. Captain Robert Knight, Fire Captain for the Brush Clearance Unit.
First, I want to thank Fire Department for, once again, your activities on the Sepulveda Pass last week, putting that fire out. We were all worried up in Mountain Gate and also in the canyons and also Mount St. Mary's and other places. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What can we tell our constituents who are watching this that are very concerned? We're getting into the fire season now. It's starting to reach that point in a couple, 3 weeks, so I guess we'll definitely be there. Of what brush clearing strategy should they be using? What kind of actions should be taken to be in a preventive mode?
Already annually, the fire department goes out and does its inspection sweep of all the homes that are in the very high fire hazard severity zone. On our website, which is at lafd.org/brush, are some tips and some recommendations that homeowners could utilize to make their home more fire safe as far as brush clearance, how they can prepare their home for in case a brush fire does come over, emergency numbers that they can contact as well.
When we had the fire last week, I was immediately in touch with my constituents in various hills and canyons and backsides, and what they were basically doing was informing each other to get their cars ready and get ready if they got the word to evacuate. The police and fire were up there telling people this might happen, might not happen. What else can my folks do right now? CERT program people plus homeowners, people who live in these canyons and hillsides, to give them a comfort level.
Well, we can meet with those individuals. Many times we do meet with homeowners associations and community groups to discuss different things that are particular to their community as far as access, numbers that they can call, local fire stations, how they can prepare their home. So that could be available to them, that we can meet with those individuals.
And I'd like to ask DWP, when you do a grid of our city and you point out those areas that are potentially fire areas, that we look at how we deal with the water aspect of this. Because some people believe certain watering of certain things is a safety measure and a preventive measure. And in those particular areas where that makes sense, we need to have that flexibility. So I look forward to the report back. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Labange is our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith, as always, looking out that way. I appreciate that greatly. What happens, Mr. McDaniels, if there's an incident right now in the Santa Monica Mountains and homeowners, in anticipation of potential fire coming their way, use their own hoses and they exceed? Would they be fined for that?
No, the department is not going to fine anybody that's trying to protect their property.
I know, but I mean, how about, you don't, I mean, today is today, and the bill comes in 60 days, and you read a meter, and it says you used, exceeded whatever it is. You don't, how do you, if I could use another fire department term, how do you red flag a area that potentially probably used additional water because they needed to?
Right, and you bring up a very good point. There's two parts to our water conservation ordinance. There's one, the emergency ordinance, that has prohibited uses, and that's the one where watering days are limited to Mondays and Thursdays, and there's other prohibited. The other part of the conservation strategy, though, is a rate strategy, and that's where if you're using water in excess of your Tier 1 allotments, you will be paying a higher rate for Tier 2 water. There currently is no provisions in there. If you use the water, you're going to pay for the water.
Right. Now, the other day it was 100 degrees in the West Silver Lake District, and my son Charles, 11, he had his buddy Sam over, and what do you think they did? They took the hose and they started, squirting each other. And I felt bad. I thought about you first, Jim. Thought about Marty Adams as well, and I thought of all of that. But then I thought about the kids around the city. Not everybody has a pool. What happens if one of your water enforcement officers is driving down a city street and sees two kids on a lawn at 3:30 in the afternoon shooting a hose gun at them? What do you guys?
Do they have an automatic shut-off nozzle on that?
I don't know. Probably not, but that's it. So, arrested.
Mr. Chen has the enforcement folks that report to him. I'll let him respond.
Give us hold my time. Give us a little report on what happened. How's the enforcement going? Because I want to be a fine city, but not a fine city.
Well, I think so far we have...
Hold my time.
We had close to 10,000 activities, and we have educated customers to the degree of just giving them a warning citation of 4,000 citation has been given. But beyond that, there's really a few citations with monetary, penalty attached to it. So our job is really more of not trying to penalize people monetarily, but more of an educational basis to go on.
What do you recommend if somebody has a business and people can't find a place to go to the bathroom and they use their side or their back alley? What do you do if a business wants to use the water to help remove what was left on the sidewalk?
Well, there are special balloons that they have with high pressurized water, rather than the regular hose will use much less water than the regular balloon.
So we encourage people to do that. That's okay.
Yes.
If there's that problem, because I don't want to have a health issue.
Yes.
Also, members, if you notice, because of the water shortage, generally, tree branches are falling. Does anyone see more tree branches fall? I sure do, all over the city, because the water is being sucked up the roots of the tree to the higher branches, and then they fall. This will be a hazard to us. Recreation and Parks has a challenge, as Mr. Park spoke. The Rose Garden, which was a gift by the Department of Water and Power when you built the aqueduct, should have water. That would be horrible if we lose those things. But I have a motion that I'm going to talk with the department that specifically looks at the issues of recreation and parks. Because of our park facilities, we don't want to lose them. And what is the date of the emergency when it would be off?
Well, the way the ordinance is written is we will be evaluating on an ongoing basis, evaluating water supply and demand. But the situation right now is pretty much at the end of the water supply year, which starts and ends on April 1st. You pretty much have all the water you're going to get. It's in the form, as you know, in the form of snow in the mountains that's melting. So we don't really expect any major change until we get into the precipitation season. So that's November.
So if we make it to December.
Yeah.
We make it to
end of
December.
the calendar year, probably.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and members, I'll share the other motion with you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Koretz.
Mr. Koretz is not here. Can I speak if he's not?
Yes, Mr. Labange for Mr. Koretz.
Just to ask on the meters of how much Recreation and Parks has reduced their water consumption by some 40%. With your help and the smart meters is what talk. How do you read that real-time catch on the reduction of water? How's the city doing?
We have a tracking system established on a monthly basis. We actually look at the consumption compared to the base year, which is the 2006-2007. So we know exactly what percentage they have been reduced. But Rec and Park has been doing a lot in reducing their overall water consumption. So they have done a terrific job in leading the way.
And how's the city doing? I think sometimes, too, I think in a positive way, if people know this, I remember my father telling me about when he grew up in Los Angeles during the Depression, there was rallies for scrap metal and all that stuff. This is a consciousness effort we got to make to change our ways. Are we meeting your goals?
Yes, the city governmental entity has taken the leading efforts in reducing, and their percentage is way above the average. So it has been significant reductions for city.
And how are we doing on reclaimed water?
On reclaimed water, we're continuing to hook up new customers. We recently got the recycled water main out to Van Nuys High School, so we're looking forward to getting Van Nuys High School hooked up to the recycled system. Almost every month, we continue to add customers to the system. So it's a matter of we have to build the pipes to get it all out to the customers. So.
All right. Well, I support all that way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Alarcon.
This Water Conservation Plan, otherwise known as the Lawn Deterioration Program, I'm very concerned, in particular in the San Fernando Valley, lawns are just being destroyed based on the conservation program. They have no ability to preserve the lawns, and it's affecting our parks where the sand, particularly in the northeast, in the eastern section of the valley, it's primarily sand as a result of the riverbeds, and the water just penetrates really quick. And if you don't continue to water, it kills the parks. Now, I've seen many of the parks deteriorate incredibly rapidly during this time, and I'm wondering when we're going, and I'm also concerned from a fire perspective, if that kind of deterioration is happening to the lawn, I'm sure similar things are happening with the trees, and I'm concerned about fire safety. I'm concerned about the look of the community. During the foreclosure crisis, most of the houses that were under foreclosure stopped watering a long time ago, so they're already deteriorated. But when are we going to look at these exemptions again, and what is the process for us to reconsider? Because it's going to cost us, I don't know how much to replant lawn in every park and to rejuvenate the lawns out there. Are we thinking penny wise and pound foolish here, or what are we going to do to preserve the landscaping out there because it's falling apart?
Well, we are in the process of responding to some of the previous council requests. As I mentioned, we have a draft amendments to the rate part of the ordinance that's going to be before
but the commission just put them off. They just delayed it.
They asked us to retool some of the language that we had in there.
By the time you guys get them a proposal, the parks will be dead. When are we going to get those parks back going? I've got thousands of people that work on those, and that's another issue. The parks in my district are fully utilized. I mean, the people go there all the time, and they're playing on dirt.
Right.
So when are we going to get those proposals to the commission and get the commission to pass them?
We expect that we'll have the revised language at the board for their next meeting, which is next week.
Okay, so what do I need to do to make sure that language is going to take care of the problem I'm describing? Part of the problem is the weather in the San Fernando Valley. Last year we had 20 days consistent over 100 degrees. And then you ask us to shut off the water to these parks?
Now, one of the things that we're struggling with, and I alluded to that when I was responding to Councilman Smith, is that there's just not enough water to go around. We just don't have enough water.
But what if we did trade programs where they reduce it in winter but increase it in summer?
Well, we're looking at reducing water all year round right now.
I know, but you can't just blanket these. You can't just blanket these things. If houses burn down again, we can't just say, "Well, we saved water."
Well, we want to make sure that we always have water so that the fire department has water. I mean, there's just not enough water to go around, and I wish I could find more water. We're actively searching for new sources of water. We're building water recycling facilities, but right now, this is the situation that we have. It's very unfortunate.
It's not unfortunate. It could have been planned differently. I think you should have been ahead of this a long time ago. But to stop people from watering their lawns and watering their landscape, the way that it was done is killing their landscapes, and it's created horrendous problems at our parks, and that should have been overcome with recommendations early on, instead of just blanketing the whole thing and saying we're not going to use water anymore. I want to see those proposals in my office as soon as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Labange?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Alicard, I share your concern. I'm working with the department on that issue, and you're so true on some geological areas of the city, especially the East San Fernando Valley, due to the Angeles, where the Big Tujunga is, that is a different soil. We have to look at it. We have to credit that. If it needs more park water, they have to have that, and that's what, there's a motion you could look at. If you could support, I'd appreciate it. Your commission's looking at it next week. I do think we did miss an opportunity. I'll say to it now. We did want to run the water reclamation line from the East Valley line, and that we got great resistance. We did want to run that east all the way on the Orange line, but the transit took precedent there. There are some challenges. I think we have to be committed to reclaim water in every which way. And I know I'm working with your department on an adjacent city of trying to get their reclaimed water into our area to get Whitnall Highway. So there's objectives, but I think it's a new day that we got to fight with you for more reclaimed water, especially for our parks and open space, and also where we can try to get more water to the park system, because we don't want to lose the parks. As you don't. I know you don't. We want to balance that out. So I'm looking forward to that commission meeting, and you did see my motion, and you gave us some ideas, so we're going to look at that. Maybe that could help move it forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. We have cards from the public on this. I'd like to ask Electra Kruger to come forward first, and thank you for your patience. And then Dr. Clyde Williams will follow her.
Yes, my name is Electra Kruger. I'm the current president of the Shadow Hills Property Owners Association. The community of Shadow Hills does lie in a combination high fire hazard and high wind velocity zone. This is a combination that can and has been known to be a very dangerous and a very deadly combination. Shadow Hills also lies in a largely equestrian community of larger lots. These are RE40 lots. They are lots that have over the years seen a great deal of effort put into beautifying the neighborhood by means of landscaping. So there are very few yards that do not boast of large areas of ground cover or hedges or a variety of bushes or trees. And in honoring of the Los Angeles Emergency Water Conservation Plan ordinance, many people this year have not planted their annual gardens. However, that history of extensive landscaping with the extensive use of the ground cover and the hedges and the bushes and the trees, these are now permanent features, and they are now severely drying. And that leaves our homes and indeed our entire communities vulnerable to fire. Therefore, we do urge the City Council to ask the DWP to review the feasibility of exempting or at the very least reducing restrictions on water use in the high fire severity zones. Now, my husband has installed an extensive sprinkler control system, not only in our yard, but also in that of several neighbors. These systems are not inexpensive. A single solenoid valve can run in the range of about $60. So a rebate system would be preferential for people to change over to a water-based or a moisture-based control system. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kruger. Appreciate those comments. Dr. Clyde Williams is next. After that is Zuma Dog.
Since it's two subjects, just saying, since it's two subjects, do we get 4 minutes or just?
The two are combined together as a single one, but if you'd like to take all four, you can, but you certainly don't need to.
Thank you. 4. Can you reset the clock?
We'll get it going again, don't worry.
Okay. Disabled exemption. Sorry, Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno. Disabled exemptions. Not many people involved, not much watering, but handheld watering is the most wasteful of your irrigation systems. A soaker with a timer on it will be far more adequate to actually get the water to the people. Now, the real issue is the high fire. Can the fire department please tell us if they implemented and enforced all regulations in the brush clearance, would there be any fire danger to the residences in the high fire areas? I am in one. I do my clearing. I do not use irrigation. So in point of fact, what you're going to do is subsidize the CD2, CD5, and a few others by putting the revenue-neutral load on the rest of the population. The high fire areas are generally the mountain areas where there's a little bit higher income compared to the flatlanders who have no high fire zoning. So if you give the high fire zoning exemption, you are encouraging use of water and the lack of enforcement of the LA Fire Department's current brush clearance requirements. No fire would occur if you had that brush clearance enforced. Many places are not enforced. Revenue neutral. All of these things, all of the exemptions, all of the variations that are being requested are a problem of revenue neutral. You're going to take the money that the high fire areas get, and you're going to take it from the low fire people because they have to provide a revenue-neutral base. Irrigation, full rebate. Who uses such irrigation systems? Commercial properties, 4 units to maybe 50 units. Other facilities which have higher water use probably already have them installed. 40 years ago, we installed one in Marin County. We had no water. We were given an allotment. We installed a system of soil moisture with overrides, and we saved 35% of the water. 35%. 40 years ago. The technology now is far, far more advanced. So it seems like you're taking the full rebate for irrigation systems, and who has to pay for that? The people who have no irrigation systems, who have no lawns, who have to go to the parks. Also slipping in the parks and building general services. All of these things are taking money from people who have very little and subsidizing either the city's bad practices or the high-fire, high-income areas in the mountains. As far as I'm concerned, this is a subsidy to the rich against the poor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Zuma Dog is our next speaker on 77.
Yes, I think I could talk about water for 4 minutes. Can you put 4 minutes up on the clock, please?
We just have 2 minutes for you on number 77, sir.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'd like to say, first of all, we're talking about water. Water is the most important thing next to air. It's more important than oil and gas or anything else. And I'm here to say a lot of corruption in the city is due to water and water rights. We could take this all the way. Why does Greg Smith laugh every time? Greg Smith, he laughs every time, and that's perfectly okay, but I'm just here to say, if I was Greg Smith, I'd be so worried about a lot of things right now, and I wouldn't be laughing at Zuma Dog. But let's talk about DWP, self-imposed water crisis. Yes, there's a water crisis. Yes, we all have to conserve now. Yes, we're charging everybody way too much money for water now. And yes, we can't, the people with horses are complaining up there in Greg Smith's district and all that. It's a self-imposed water crisis. I'd like to see DWP do more with desalination. In case you hadn't noticed, we have a gigantic water source not too far. It's called the Pacific Ocean. And if you use desalination, you would not be in a water crisis right now. Also, you can reseed the forest. I'm told that DWP purposely doesn't reseed the forest because that might help there be more water, and if they're driving down the water rates, well, that's less money that they're making and less money that's into the general fund. So deseeding. Also, there's drainage pipes. A lot of water can be taken off the drainage pipes, and also all the water in the Owens Valley. Let me tell you, people, DWP, they got water. They just don't want to reduce the rates. Here's what I'm here to say, people. If you owned water and charge for it by the liter or gallon or however, why would you want to bring the rate down? So I'm here to say DWP, through corruption, racketeering, and all illegal crap, is keeping the water rates real high, and it could be much lower, and that money, represent the people, will you? Stop this false imposed water crisis.
Our next speaker is Candido Maris.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. You know, since 2004, I've been before this council, and I have been, in disagreement with DWP. But I want to thank this council and this mayor for appointing this new general manager and the new commissioners. There has been so many changes that have taken place at the Department of Water and Power. It's unbelievable. And the one area they really are working and they're really trying to make the improvements is in conservation. I know that they're going to be holding classes. Landscaping is one of the biggest areas. Mr. Smith, we had a family in our community, and they said I could mention their name. Their names were Poncher. I went out to their home. They live over off of Roscoe and north of Roscoe and Winnetka. 3/4 acre, and their whole lawn is going dry. Well, the department has the personnel. They have landscapers. If you go around and look at DWP facilities now, they're redoing the landscaping. They're unbelievable. There's 4 Mediterranean areas in the world. We live in one of them. We need to bring all of that vegetation, all those plants, and utilize those in Los Angeles, and we can make Los Angeles even more beautiful. So, I'm doing it. I'm saying that the department's come a long way. Mr. McDaniels has been doing a great job, Mr. Chin. Again, it's hard for me to be saying this, but the changes have been unbelievable. And also, they have collected 96% of their vendor discounts. Mr. President, if you'll recall, we brought that before you in 2004. In 2008, there was over $2 million savings. So if you take the previous 4 years, it's almost $8 million. So changes are taking place, but we need to educate the public on how to re-landscape the property, and I hope we'll work together to make sure that happens. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much. We'll close our general public comments on this. Any other speakers from the council? If not, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on 78 and 77 and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Thank you. If we could reconsider 72, please prepare the roll on reconsideration and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
And there was Amendment A that had been circulated just after we had voted. Without objection, if we could accept that technical amendment, and please prepare the roll as amended on 72 and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 80, called special for cards.
All right. And do we do 26 forthwith? If we can.
No, it has not been sent forthwith
If
yet.
we can send that, please, forthwith. 80, we have cards on now, and we'd like to ask Anthony Wayne Ford to come forward, who's been very patient all meeting long. Thank you, sir. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think you saved the best for last. Item number 80 was changed to the Michael Jackson special event. It concerned me that we are sitting here having a discussion on who is going to pay for the celebration of Michael Jackson's death, a man who has given more to charity organizations than anyone, where he is in the Guinness Book of Records for most given by anyone. I understand the city and the people concerns of why we, the taxpayers, should pay for this act at a time when the government is sending out IOUs for the state workers. But where is the outcry when on May the 1st, the last 3 to 5 years, our city streets are shut down, or in Hollywood when we do the same as well, when we lay a star on the ground? Our acting mayor at the time stated that the city has the money to fund such special events. And look at how much money was brought in by Michael during that time. Business around the Staples Centers and the hotels and small businesses have been doing very well. The question is, whose idea was it to spend $43,000 on back box lunches, and why? I believe there should be a statue of Michael Jackson in front of the Staples Center for music and entertainment, as we have for sports, with Magic, Wayne, and Oscar. And it would be a win-win for the city and the business. And plus, I want to thank all the council members who stayed to hear the voice of some of the people, because what I see is, this is my first time coming to this forum. And I think it should be a check mark up there for all those who don't participate, so we know that they're no longer here. And I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you for your patience today with a very full agenda. Our next speaker on this is Wayne Spindler. Sorry, I hope I got that right.
Yeah. This relates to number 83.
We're actually on 80 right now? 83
well,
was
this is
continued.
80 and 80, and this is all the same type of thing.
Okay. You can keep it to 80 because 83 was continued. Thank you.
I came down here and I filled out a card in 83, and after I did it, all of a sudden it was determined Councilman Zine is not here today, and then it was tabled to talk about the $4 million stolen from the taxpayers and given to a private developer for the Michael Jackson event. And then we see other things on number 80 where more additional money is being given to special events. So let's not give money to anybody that has special events. If you have special events, you organize it, you get a permit, you pay the fees, and before the permit is issued, you agree on how much security you need. The problem with the Staples Center situation is they didn't come in first, obtain the permits, and obtain the necessary budgetary constraints that were known to be needed. Even the casket that was protected by the SWAT team, it turns out the body of Michael Jackson was not even in the casket, but remained at Forest Lawn. And I watched this council today. You give $100 million to somebody to buy foreclosed properties, Last week, you spent $126 million on a parking garage that was worth $30 million last 8 years ago in a down economy. You have spent since July 1st being reelected, and I've counted at about $300 million of additional money that you have given away to these special interests, including the $4 million that we're not going to get because you guys want to table this motion. The city attorney's in hiding, Dennis Zine's in hiding on this one issue, and millions of dollars of campaign contributions are going into your coffers while you bankrupt this city into oblivion. And it has to stop.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zuma Dog. Then it's Miriam Fogler and Van Nuys.
Yes, special event fees. I'd like to give people of City Council a reason why more than ever you should be cutting back on these frivolous dog and pony shows, parades, cookie cuttings, donut sprinklings, face paintings, all kinds of frivolous nonsense. Okay, in case you didn't realize, Hollywood used to be our biggest economic hub. And if I could, if I could please be so rude as to ask for the attention of council without talking while I'm talking, or if council could at least lower their voices so I could hear myself.
Please continue, sir.
It's hard to continue when you're being...
There's very little noise. If you can please continue.
I'll just let the clock tick until Parks is done. If you can just
please continue.
Okay. And I love Parks. I hated to say something bad against him, but I couldn't hear myself think. But I love Parks. He's my second favorite council member. Now, the reason why we have this problem in the city, we can't be paying for these special event fees, is because Hollywood Runaway Productions, the number one thing that we used to have going for us was the money that we made from Hollywood. Well, now there's only one movie in the entire city being filmed, and that's only because they couldn't pull out in time. So you will not be seeing the revenues you've expected. Now, tourism is our number one, is the number one revenue generator for the city. However, womp, 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 womp. Tourism will be down tremendously, and so we won't be having that money. Plus, you borrowed $1 billion, and you're not going to be able to pay it back, and the budget is completely padded with a bunch of nothingness, and you're not going to have the money you're expecting, and it hasn't even been approved. And I'm here to tell you, people, you lost $7 billion in the stock market. The city's going bankrupt. The mayor has no plan. He has no budget. You have approved an illegal budget. You have not been agreed to the concessions. The city is going down, baby, and stop with the donut sprinklings and face paintings and cookie cutters and all the nonsense and start putting it into the community.
We next have Miriam Fogler and Van Nuys.
Yes, this is taxation about representation, and the gentleman here who guards this chamber told me I can't eat here. I guess you people shouldn't be eating here either at City Council. Let me tell you, I'm holding this, folks. This is the concession that the unions were going to give in. But I'm asking vote no, just for the principle of it. I know this was a good idea.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. We have the special event motions before us. If you can please address the special event motions on number 80. That's what the card is in for. Thank you so much.
However you want. You're spending the money however you want. You're taking and taking and taking, and there's no control over you people here. Law-abiding people must take and go to court and take you over and put you all people in jail for treason against the people of the city of Los Angeles. You are committing crimes against the people here, and you should be put on trial for crimes against us. Let me tell you, folks, what they did here was a trial. I didn't get my minute to hear talk about the city of the Van Nuys thing on number 30. That was another thing. You have deprived me my First Amendment right and telling me I have no right to eat here. You people eat there all the time.
Mr. President, she still is not talking about the special events.
Please, this is our last warning. If you could please talk about the special events before us.
You have no right to take it and give it to the rich and take it from the poor. That's what you're doing with the Jackson people. And that's not right. To put a statue up and make the taxpayers foot the bill, you pay for it, sir, not the taxpayers. You pay for the bill at the Jackson Memorial thing at the people. That guy, EAG, should be run out of town. The Staples Center is public property. It belongs to the city of Los Angeles, the taxpayers. You have no right to take it. And Ernie Bernardi would condone everything, would not condone anything you people have done with Van Nuys and the Staples Center here with the fee waivers. This is an outrage, and it should be stopped. And it should be stopping on your raises as well, indefinitely, until the city's balanced its budget, just like the state.
Thank you, Ms. Fogler, and a happy Bastille Day to you, too. Donna Pearman is our next speaker.
I don't like this. Why doesn't the entertainment business pay for Michael Jackson? If he gave so much, certainly the entertainment business can come up with it. We don't even know how much that was, but I'm sure that later on you'll come back to it and pass it. We have more, and again, we have more fee waivers. Our city is bankrupt. We continue throwing our money to the CRA. That's why we don't have any money, and that's why we shouldn't have any money for these fee waivers. You will not curb your special interest fees, and the biggest, I guess, is Michael Jackson. We don't have the money for these, and we don't have money for carnivals, block parties, and movies under the stars when you don't even let people know enough in time when these movies are. So it just happen to be, if you happen to live around the neighborhood, you probably know when it is. We need to get rid of the special event fee waivers. We can't afford it. How can they ask for people to give up their raises as long as we continue doing these fee waivers? I know you'll say it's small potatoes compared, but it really isn't. When you do it 3 times a week, it adds up, you know. City employees shouldn't have to give up anything as long as the city council and our mayor doesn't know how to spend the money. As simple as that. So we need to stop doing this. And as I said, the biggest one is Michael Jackson. I didn't like the fact that he said because he did so much that we automatically have to agree, otherwise we look bad. So this sounds like it's going to go off, so even though I have 20 seconds.
Take your time.
Oh, okay. And so the biggest ones are that Audubon Theater. Anyway. Oh, yeah. I don't like the 51st Annual Audubon Carnival, 5,741, and that was a big one on there.
Thank you.
Okay.
We will duly note that. We appreciate your comments. Thank you very much, Ms. Pearman. And with that, we'll go ahead and prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
The desk is clear.
All right. Any announcements, colleagues? Yes, Mr. Parks.
Announcement, everybody should have a copy of the Laker resolution. We had several people ask about it, the one that was presented, and so everyone should have one on their desk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. Any other announcements, colleagues? If not, do we have any adjourning motions today?
No.
If I can please ask everybody in council chambers to please rise for our adjourning motions. I'd like to recognize Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. I'd like us to adjourn today in the memory of Alonzo Day, who passed away in Oakland July 9th, and he was only 26 years old. Alonzo was the grandson of Betty Day, who has been a longtime member of the Watts community and currently is the president of my Watts Gang Task Force. He's survived by his parents, Alonzo and Patricia, his grandmother, Betty, 3 sisters, many friends and relatives, and he will be greatly missed. We're still learning more about what exactly happened, and his memorial services will be held Wednesday in Oakland.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be nice. Betty would appreciate that.
Next second, sorry? Oh, sure. We'll do all members on that. Are there any other adjourning motions, colleagues? If not, Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll? We'll next be in session tomorrow. That's the 15th of July, 2009. Here